Unmuted? Okay. I'd like to call to order Planning and Zoning Commission for the town of Telluride on Thursday, June 27th, 2024 at 5:31 PM. Let's do roll call, starting with Todd,
Todd Brown,
Angela Dye,
Kathy Green.
Charles Dalton,
Peter Sante. John Miller.
and in the room we have staff. John, you want to
Yes.
say into the?
Oh, John
microphone?
Stramberg, Historical Preservation and Planning Director.
Allie Slayton, Assistant Town Attorney.
And Piper? Piper Miller with Clerk's Office, and
Dan Enright, Town Council Liaison.
thank you.
And Karen.
And Karen.
Yeah.
Hi. We're doing roll call, and so Karen Guglielmani with the Town of Telluride Public Works. Okay. Election of officers. Kathy?
I move to elect Angela Dye as chair.
Todd Brown seconds.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
You need to say, you need
Todd?
to.
Yes.
Todd, yes, Angela, you
Yes.
don't raise hands.
Okay.
Todd, yes.
Angela, yes.
Kathy, yes.
Charles, yes.
Peter, yes. John, yes.
Okay, and you don't get to vote.
Move
Over
over
there.
here.
Okay, I shall. Now, election of a vice chair. Who would like to be vice chair?
I'm happy to remain vice chair, but if someone else prefers to do that, I am happy to not do it. And it means you run a meeting. If Angela's not present, it's hard to run meetings on Zoom, so you might run meetings when she's on Zoom but not here presently. It means you do that Friday meeting once a month when there's something for P and Z on that agenda. If Angela were not here, and it means you sign plats if there's a plat to sign when Angela's not here. So it's not a lot of work, but you do need to be kind of on, around and not traveling a lot, I guess is what I'm saying.
Although we're a traveling crowd, aren't we?
Yeah.
So anybody?
I move to elect Kathy Green as vice chair.
I'll second that.
John Miller seconds. Okay, Todd Brown and John Miller. Motion and seconded for Kathy Green. Any discussion, further discussion? All those in favor, Todd?
Todd, yes.
Kathy, yes.
Angela, yes?
Charles, yes.
Peter, yes. John, yes.
All right, so we're. All right, approval of minutes from May 23rd, 2024. If they're okay, I'll entertain a motion. Don't be shy. Otherwise I'll call on you.
I wasn't here, so I'm not going to do it. Someone that was present needs to do that.
That's us. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as drafted.
John and
I'll second that.
Peter will second. Okay. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor, John?
John, yes. Peter, yes.
Charles, yes.
Angela, yes?
Kathy, yes.
Excuse me. Todd, yes.
All right, so those are okay. Staff announcements?
So I do have some announcements, and as you know, in the beginning of the year, we were looking to release a request for proposals for the comprehensive plan overhaul. And it was put on hold to achieve or go after a grant of $150,000 from the Department of Local Affairs here in Colorado. And we did receive that grant, and thank you. We did receive that grant, and as of yesterday, or
Yay.
Wednesday, or not, maybe not yesterday, Tuesday, one of those, yesterday or Tuesday, we have released the request for proposals, and that is moving forward. So that's big, good news, and I expect the Planning and Zoning Commission to be well involved in this.
Thank you. Can you tell us when those are expected back?
So July 29th is the cutoff date for it. So they have to be in by then, and then it will go through staff. And then the top ones will come to Planning and Zoning Commission for review, and then you'll send a recommendation to council for final.
So August meeting, you're thinking?
Yes, that's what we're hoping. And there might be just the way timing goes, there might be a special meeting called for those reviews by P and Z. I'll look
Okay.
more into that, just because we don't want to wait another month to hold off on that. We want to get this thing moving forward.
Okay. Any questions of John on that?
No, that's thrilling. We got the DOLA grant.
Nice grant writing.
Welcome, Ron Quarles, to the meeting.
Hi.
Interim senior planner, I think is the term. Is there anyone else on Zoom, by the way?
There are a lot of people on Zoom. Who are you looking for?
Nobody in particular, but to recognize them as staff. Since I
Have
can't
any
see them.
other staff?
Pardon me?
We don't have any other staff.
So those of you on with the public will recognize you as appropriate here. And the next item is public comment on non-agenda items. I want to remind everybody to please use the raise your hand function. And I'm looking toward the TV since those are folks online in particular. Speak it clearly. You'll be unmuted by Piper. And
So just raise your hand digitally.
yeah, and usually we limit,
Non-agenda items.
yeah, we usually limit comments to 3 minutes.
I see none.
Okay, no hands raised. Very good. Anybody in the room? All right. All right, so we'll go to our first public hearing item. And I want to thank the commissioners for electing me, I think, to the chair. And I hope you'll give me some patience today since this is my first official meeting. And we'll see how it goes. I know that someone will correct me if I'm on the wrong track, so that's great. Okay, as John said, we need to read the title. Sign references repeal. A review and recommendation from P and Z to the town council regarding amendments to the land use code, repealing multiple references for signs. Staff member is John Strandberg, Historic Preservation Planning Director. And go for it.
So if you remember at the last meeting, we discussed signs and the sign code update. Went through all that, and I think at one point I mentioned that we had found one piece that was referencing it that we needed to remove before we could adopt this and bring it forward to council. And after we found that one, I was like, okay, let me go back and look through, and I found 4 references so that we have to remove. So what this does is it takes out these references and allows us to adopt a whole new code without having these conflicted. So any questions on that?
Any discussion? Everybody clear that this is part of process for, last time I think we looked at the sign
Yes.
code that we were retaining, and this is just to clean up these code references, right?
Yeah, and this goes with the design guidelines with Historical Architectural Review Commission that they have, because we're taking out the sign references in that with the other document, with what you approved for the review and recommendation last time. And we'll also go with, there's one other piece going with it. I can't remember off the top of my head.
Okay, I do have a
I'll go first.
question.
Yes,
Will these be enacted simultaneously?
yes,
So there
that
will
was the
not
other
be a
thing.
Gap in,
No, that was the whole point why we had to hold everything and wait for this. So we could go, okay, we're taking these pieces out and then we're putting this new piece in as well as the new design guidelines.
is it done
So-
in one motion?
For this piece, yes. And that's it
At town
for all
council?
4. We're still looking at how we want to do that because that's going to be an ordinance updating the legislative and the land use code as well as the design guidelines. So that's going to be a whole fun ball game.
Yeah. I didn't want one repealed and have us without, standing out there naked without any sun.
No, that
Stop.
won't happen.
Okay. So proposed motion for P and Z is next. Kathy,
I move to recommend to the town council approval of the proposed amendments to the Telluride Land Use Code, repealing the reference code sections within the staff report. Wait. Go back, sorry, of June 27th, well, for the meeting of June 27th, 2024.
then there's,
I have to get back to my
Here it is, right
page.
here.
Okay. The motion is based on evidence and testimony provided at a public hearing held on June 27th, 2024, with the notice of such hearing provided as required by the Telluride Land Use Code.
a second.
Todd seconds.
All right, Todd. Thank you. Any discussion on this item further? Okay.
Check public.
Public hearing.
Any public comment?
Oh, public comment, anyone?
Open the hearing.
And we close the hearing. Hang on here. So we will close the public hearing. We have a motion before us. No discussion. So how do you vote, Todd?
Todd, yes.
Kathy, yes.
Angela, yes?
Charles, yes.
Peter, yes. John, yes.
All right, passes. One down. Okay. Number 2, lots 5R through 9, block 20 ETA minor subdivision. Consideration of a minor subdivision application to remove designated 15-foot rear setback on the plat and optional rear access within the 15-foot rear setback pursuant to Land Use Code Section 6-402.c. Legal description, lots 5R, 7, 8, and 9, block 20, East Telluride addition to the town of Telluride at 835, 845, and 855 East Columbia Avenue, and undesignated address for lot 5R, block 20 ETA. Zone district is residential. Owner is Frank C. Winter. Owners Jennifer R. Winter and San Miguel LLC. The applicant is Mara Trumbull, CCY Architects. Staff member who's going to introduce this is Ron Quarles, interim senior planner. We have also received some public letter of comment here. I don't think anyone has read this. It's just been handed. At what point, John, should we stop and read that?
You should take time now to do it.
Very good. Can we take a few minutes to do that then?
We can take a 3-minute break and I can pause the audio.
Okay, that sounds good.
We'll take a
Sure.
3-minute break.
meeting?
I need a little more time.
Okay. Leave it a couple more minutes.
I'm ready.
Kathy's ready. Everyone else? Okay, so we'll resume here. John, did you want to introduce this item?
Ron will be.
Ron is going to do that.
There's one. Stop this video.
Sorry, I fell asleep. I'm sorry. No. Thank you, Planning and Zoning Commission. This is a minor subdivision request. Includes 5 platted lots located at the northwest corner of East Columbia and Columbine Streets. Purpose for this application, this hearing, it's a request to remove a 15-foot rear building setback line that was established with previous plats. The building setback line was designated on the plats for the purpose of providing an area for potential rear access to each of the lots. Back in 1997, the lots 5 through 10 were replatted into lots 5 through 9. This was to accomplish a transfer of land from the town of Telluride, who owned these lots, to private owners as a part of a land swap. The land that was swapped included areas that are now currently the town park. At the time of the replat, P&Z agreed to establish a rear building setback line for the purpose of potential rear access. An agreement was simultaneously recorded with the plat, and it outlined two different methods for access, either from the rear of the lots by the use of this rear area established by the building setback, or from the fronts of the lots along Columbia or Columbine Avenue. I'm sorry, Columbine Street. In 2015, lots 5 and 6 were replatted, were combined, and this was prior to the ballot 300 measure. Created lot 5R and established 4 lots that fronted onto Columbia Avenue. As I've stated, at the time this was brought forward for Planning and Zoning Commission consideration, there were 2 alternatives that the Planning and Zoning Commission considered with this replat. One from the rear and the other from the street frontages. What this diagram identifies is the rear access. It's a 15-foot rear setback the language reads as follows: from the rear of the property within 15-foot rear yard setback, if unanimously agreed to by all owners or landowners within a subdivision and memorialized in an agreement. Alternatively, there was provisions to allow the owners to provide access from the fronts of the lots. And specifically, at that time, it was lots 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. But the number of curb cuts was limited to 3 on East Columbia Street or Avenue and 1 on Columbine Street. So the owners have indicated that they actually have worked together. There's two owners for the 4 lots, or 2 separate entities. They've agreed or mutually agreed that the access that they desire is not from the rear within the 15-foot setback, but actually from Columbia Avenue and Columbine Street. Because of this consensus of the owners, the application is to remove the building setback line and allow for future development to comply with the minimum rear yard requirements established by the land use code. And those are 15 feet or an average setback along that block, which there really isn't anything to compare. So it would be a 15-foot rear setback for the principal building, and then 5 feet for the accessory buildings. So staff supports this request for a replat based on the preference of the property owners to provide access from Columbine and Columbia. And as this slide shows, we also support this request based on our concern for the potential access for these 4 lots at this proximity, at this close proximity at the intersection with Primrose and Columbine and a 3rd street, which I can't remember what it is. Pandora, East Pandora. So what I wanted to show you is kind of an aerial view of this potential intersection if this access were accomplished in this arrangement from the south and then from the east. Again, you can see how closely this alignment is to the intersection, which we do have concerns. And I think Karen Guglielmone is here to clarify any of her concerns as far as public works and the design standards for access.
Ron,
And from the north.
Ron, in
and
these
finally
pictures,
from
We
the
have a
west.
question, Ron, from Todd.
I'm sorry.
We have a question that Todd has on the pictures that you're showing for a minute.
Okay, sorry, I took my headphones off.
no, that's fine. What you're showing us, what is the yellow dash line? Is that the rear of the lots, or is that
The easement
the
line.
easement line?
Yeah.
That is the alignment. That is the proposed alignment as per the plat. Based
So-
on that 15-foot setback. So that would be,
The
that would
easement
be-
line.
yes,
Okay.
I'm sorry, say that again.
The
Angela?
easement, it's the easement line, right? The property line is not shown.
no, this is not the property line. This is the location of the potential access.
Okay,
So
and the property line would be 15 feet to the north up the hill of the yellow dash line?
No, the property line is close to this boundary. Well, actually, yeah, it would be probably about 7 feet, 6 or 7 feet. Because this kind of, I mean, generally identifies it from the midpoint. It's a 15-foot area.
Thank you.
So, staff is introducing a new process. We are providing a resolution as a part of, our, recommendations. And so what I wanted to do is provide you with, the findings that are in the resolution, of approval. And I don't necessarily need to read those. These are pretty standard findings that we typically include with applications such as this for minor subdivision. We have added one condition in the resolution, and that is to nullify the rear access among the property owners by a recorded agreement, or it has to be recorded. But the agreement should preserve the points of access from Columbia and Columbine as outlined in the original agreement. And I probably should have specified in this agreement that it's not necessarily at the specific points of access, but that the access is limited to 3 points along Columbia and 1 from Columbine. That's the intent of this condition, if the rear setback is removed. We have a motion included in your staff memo, but I've also included it as a part of this presentation. If you need to refer to this motion, I'll be glad to keep that up for your consideration. We also have a motion of denial. If you choose to deny the application for the minor subdivision, we have not included any findings, and we have not included in any conditions of approval or approval of the resolution for denial. If the Planning and Zoning Commission, if any of the members do have findings that they would like to include with a motion to approve a resolution of denial, that wording needs to be provided prior to that motion, so that we're clearly understanding what the findings are and what any conditions are. We kind of discussed that at our meeting last night or yesterday, so kind of a refresher on that. We did receive one letter from the owner, Mr. Winter, and Pancho Winter, and we included that in the packet. And I was not aware of an additional letter that apparently that's been received prior to the meeting, and you've had time to review it prior to this presentation. With that, that concludes my presentation. Be glad to answer any questions if you have any.
Ron, we also received a letter from adjoining neighbors.
Yes, and I just referred to that.
Okay, it said from owner.
Well,
Is it?
no, I didn't have this letter that you just
Okay,
received.
yeah, we
I
didn't.
wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, so we weren't either, so very good. I just wanted to mention that
Yeah.
into the record. Yes, Kathy.
Does this resolution remove just the vehicle access requirement, or does it automatically remove the standard 15-foot setback for primary structures?
No, the land use code dictates as far as the setbacks are concerned. So there's a 15-foot setback for principal buildings and a 5-foot for accessory on the rear. So that would remain. This is simply to remove the building setback line from the plat.
No, it's the vehicle setback line, right? Or the vehicle.
Building setback line is the way it's referred to on the plat for the purpose of potential vehicle access.
So Go
Okay.
ahead, Kathy.
Well, it just,
We're
it seems
confused.
awkward to be moving the building setback line when that is, calling it that instead of saying the vehicle easement line. I mean, I would be more,
Yeah, it is confusing. I agree. It's, what they wanted to do is establish a setback so that they could have the room for a potential easement. If the owners agreed that they wanted to do or provide the access from the rear. So they established the setback of 15 feet to accommodate a potential easement within that 15 feet.
But it would still mean that the principal building would be 15 feet from the property line, but any accessory like a shed or
If
a secondary unit or something.
No, if they had determined that they would prefer to have the access from the rear, then there would be no development in that
15 feet.
easement, within that easement. It would be for access only.
I think what she was asking, Ron, was what would be allowed in that area right now if that easement was removed? Or that
Oh,
yard,
yeah,
15-yard setback, not easement.
Yeah, 15 feet for principal, 5 feet for accessory
Minimum of 5 foot to a,
property line.
correct. Minimum 5 feet. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah.
Even though 15 is
Yeah.
recommended? Okay. All right. Thank you.
Anyone else have questions of staff? Yay, hello. Thank you.
Ron, do you have access to plats of this area beyond what's in the packet? Because they show only these lots and none of the adjacent lots.
Yeah, I can pull up the GIS map.
There were other lots as part of the subdivision originally, weren't there or no?
no, but
No,
you
but
need to
There are
view it.
lots
but
around,
there
yeah.
are lots around that, some of whom are
Are in our,
neighbors that are in this new letter.
I'm getting there, I'm almost there.
lots
Okay.
B4, B5, A5, and A7.
Well, it's not even that.
Okay, so these are the lots right here, 5R, 7, 8.
Okay, and B5 is to the north of that against Pandora.
Yes,
Okay. And then I'm having a hard time following it because it's moving.
sorry. I'll take the zoning off of it so you can see it a little easier. And I'll add structure. So the potential access would be from the rear of these lots at this intersection right here, close to this intersection.
Okay, and can you zoom in just, no. Yeah, good. Thank you.
There we are, thank you.
Got it.
Any questions, Todd?
Okay, no, thank you.
Yes, Peter.
I didn't see in the memo a list of prior actions, but just a thought, question. I don't think there was a HARC R&R at all related to this, correct?
Right.
All right. I wanted to verify. I'm just
you.
thinking of the vehicle aspect of access along Columbia as opposed from the rear.
Yeah, we can talk
And-
about that in deliberation.
Sure. So
Yeah.
that was all.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
And just while I'm looking at this, I zoomed in and related to Todd's question, adjacent lots or lot to the north appear to have less than a 15-foot setback to the shared property line. north of this
That's
group
a
of lots.
comment. Okay,
Which one are you?
Is,
no, that's
Is that a
comment.
question?
yeah, not a question, sorry.
Okay, so let's talk about that later. Okay, any more questions of staff? Do we have a presentation from the applicant?
Yes.
If we do, no one in the room?
No.
Okay, we have
Or
someone
us.
online.
It's online.
Can you
Yes.
unmute
Yes.
them and show them? All right. And you are?
Hi, Maura
Introduce
Trumbull with
yourself,
C.
please. Okay, thank you.
All right, I'm going to share screen here. So a brief presentation, and I think I also have an item that may answer one of your staff questions as well. Okay, so just wanted to start here with the existing plat, or the original 1997 plat, which Ron referenced, and highlight that it is a 15-foot rear yard setback that is identified on this plat. It doesn't actually reference the access agreement, so that was kind of a separate document that went with this. And understand your confusion. There's kind of generally been some confusion about the relationship of those two things. And then again, we do, when lots 5 and 6 were combined, we do then get a reference to the 15-foot rear yard setback for potential access per that access agreement. So it was clarified a little bit in the replat of lots 5 and 6 into lot 5R in 2015. Okay. Keep it over a little bit. So this is that access agreement, which we've been referencing here. And I just wanted to highlight a couple items within this. Again, this was really about access to these lots, as Ron has highlighted, and really just wanted to call attention to the unanimous agreement by all landowners. Both parties that own property here, the Winters as well as San Miguel Properties, or San Miguel LLC, they have come to an agreement, which is where this is really coming from. We are looking to kind of dissolve this access agreement, vacate this access agreement, and get rid of that 15-foot rear yard setback in order to provide vehicle access from Columbine and Columbia, as Ron has stated. And then also just allow the underlying land use code to dictate the setbacks on this property, just like any other properties throughout town. So allowing there to be a 15-foot setback to the principal structure and a 5-foot setback to any accessory structures, and all kind of the standards that go along with that. And just to highlight that, referencing back to HARC guideline number 14 of building setbacks, and just recognizing that that traditional pattern of development is important throughout town. Wanted to then zoom out and look at while not a part of this subdivision, the East Pandora subdivision does, or PUD does surround this area. So this document does indicate those setbacks that you were asking for the surrounding lots. And really in general, throughout this neighborhood, 5-foot setbacks were fairly standard on all of these lots, as you can see, and certainly on the lots directly adjacent to these properties. So allowing that underlying land use code to kind of dictate the way that development happens on lots 5R through 9 will in fact kind of relate to the rest of the neighborhood context and the existing setbacks and pattern of development. And just finally ending on the draft plat here, which is looking at vacating that access, so that setback that was intended for the vehicular access, and tying that directly to the vacation of the access agreement, which is the legal document that would go along with this draft plat, which then establishes that there is no longer that option A or option B access agreement that originally existed. And that kind of wraps up our presentation.
So, Laura, this agreement has already been signed? Is that right?
The vacation agreement has been signed by both of the property owners. They have both agreed to the vacation agreement, correct?
And the access agreement that we see, agreement to vacate, has in here a clause number 3, consent of the town of Telluride. So is the town of, are you intending that the town of Telluride be a signor on this
Yes.
as well?
Yes, we would like that to be a recorded. It's part of the resolution, I believe that you guys have, if within the packet, item number 1.
Okay, any questions of the applicant? Anyone online?
We have people, if you want to call for public comment.
Yes.
I'm not.
I have a lot of people
Yeah, I
online.
just want to make sure that there were still people online that might be wanting to comment and in the room, I presume. So we'll go now to open public comment on this hearing. I would stress that you have 3 minutes to be concise about what it is you're presenting into the record. And if you're in the room, please come to the microphones up front so that we can hear you.
Piper, is this microphone on?
Yes, at the podium. And I've got one hand raised online. Angela.
Okay. Please use,
I'm gonna ask.
Yeah.
him to unmute.
that's, so same for non-agenda items. We urge you to raise your hand. So thank you very much. Anyone else who needs to or wants to comment, please do the same and we'll take you in order and Piper's gonna keep us organized.
I have asked Carl Kravitz to unmute. His hand is raised. He is not unmuting yet, so.
Is there anyone else?
let's go
Oh, wait a
to-
second.
There he is.
Sorry. Okay.
Can you state
so-
your address too for us?
Yes, I'm very sorry. Carl Kravitz, my wife Elizabeth Warner is here with me. Our address is 854 East Columbia, so we are directly across the street from the lots that are being discussed today. I have a comment, but I also am trying to understand what this means. My understanding and our understanding is that there was a plan for approximately, and I'm rounding, 2,500 square foot residence on the double lot that's on the corner of East Columbia and Columbine. And I also understand that the plan was that there would be a curb cut to access that property from Columbine. And I guess I'm wondering whether that has changed or is the current status quo. That's my first question, and then I do have a comment.
Okay, we'll go ahead with your questions and we'll ask
Okay.
the applicant to offer those after public comment.
Okay, my second question relates to the setback in the front of the proposed building, which I understand is that house, and some structure that's less than 950 feet. But my question was, my understanding was that there was some accommodation made to the 15-foot setback in the front of that proposed development. Is that going to continue, or given the fact that the rear setback might be adjusted if this is approved? That's my second question. And then the third question is in terms of the curb cuts that were mentioned to the to the west of the development on the corner. Where are those? How many of those are there off Columbia? And I'd like to know that because my comment is ultimately going to be, I'm not sure if you had, 4 houses put into single lots there with I guess driveways coming off Columbia, that would be a significant change to the neighborhood. In most of Telluride, at least in my experience, there are some large lots, but if you go, like, for example, to the 500 block on East Columbia, you have a number of houses, but the automobile access is from an alley behind on each side. And so, in any event, I'd like to get answers to my questions, I guess, and then make the comment that I think it would change the character of the neighborhood and what the commission thinks about that. That's sort of where I am. I'm just would like to get the information.
I want to jump in. I think this is a minor subdivision with no new construction plans submitted with the minor subdivision. So we have no idea, nor does the applicant have to come forward with an idea tonight of what would be built. It would all be built based on our existing, recently revised HARC guidelines, or about to be revised HARC guidelines. And, you know, I did not see any plans associated, and we can't really answer those questions tonight. I don't believe I need staff to help me on this.
Now, applicants are supposed to respond to public
Okay, sorry,
comment. You
sorry.
can't have dialogue.
I
I
mean-
muted it again
Okay.
because
Right.
his time is up.
So at, when we are done with public comment, we'll have the applicant reply. Is that correct, John? To those questions,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And
sorry.
some of those were of staff. Is that an opportunity for them to comment and to answer questions, right?
Yes.
So thank you for your input.
We've got another hand raised. I'm going to ask Lexi Tudenham to unmute.
And that was a Mr. Craven, is that correct? That just-
Carl
Kravitz.
Kravitz.
Kravitz, okay.
She's unmuted.
There, can you hear me?
Yes, and introduce yourself, please.
Yes. My name is Lexi Tuddenham. I am here to represent primarily my mother, who is the owner of Lot B5. That's that triangle-shaped one at the top of the pictures that you've been seeing. And we've owned that lot since 1988. I think we discussed this back in February, but in order to sort of bring that forward into the present, here we are again. So it's an issue that I discussed with Poncho a number of years back, and you know, we really want to facilitate dialogue here. As part of that, you know, we've brought a new version of the letter in, and I would like to read that if possible as a way to enter that into the record, and also to make sure that other people who are online can also hear it.
Sure.
Okay.
Less than 3 minutes?
Yes.
I don't know how many pages you're talking.
I'll read fast.
Okay.
So, and this is something that me and my neighbors have come up with together, and I won't read all of the undersigned at the end. But basically, as the owners of lots B4, B5, A5, and A7, we're writing in opposition to the proposed establishment of a elimination of a 15-foot setback along the rear of lots 5R, 7, 8, and 9, block 20. This setback was established by the Planning and Zoning Commission in October 1997, when the commission approved the East Telluride Town Lot subdivision, and was in response to commission and neighborhood comments regarding views, adjacency, and some other issues. The subdivision was specifically proposed by the town to reconfigure 5 town-owned residential lots and 15 feet of lot 5, block 20, with 10 feet of vacated portion of the Columbine Street right-of-way, to enable a land trade for private inholdings within Town Park. Specifically, the town sought to trade the newly created lot 6, 7, 8 to Levin's family for inholding, and to sell the newly created lot 5 to the Winter family for cash. So prior to recording the final plat and conveying the lots to the Levins and Winters, the town requested and P&Z approved an amendment to the subdivision clarifying that access to lots 5 through 9 could occur either through your rear yard or by an access easement that generally falls within the 15-foot setback, or through the front yard, subject to certain conditions. In the amendment request of P&Z, at the time, the town manager confirmed the town's position that the required 15-foot setback by the commission is not objectionable and would appear to meet neighborhood concerns about view and proximities. It is important to note that the setback was established prior to either the Levens or the Winters acquisition of the respective properties from the town, and that all parties had full knowledge of various restrictions placed on the subdivision. It's also clear from the record that the 15-foot setback and the vehicular access easement were established for distinct and independent reasons, and that's really the point that I want to come back to here. So since the inception, there have been 2 development approvals within the subdivision, both of which complied with the 15-foot setback. Ms. Trumbull just referenced one of them. The first was for a Hark shed in the rear portion of Lot 5R, and the second was a vacation of the lot line between lots 5 and 6 in 2015 to create Lot 5R prior to passage of Ordinance 300. The recorded plat for this replat for this lot line vacation is attached and clearly maintains the 15-foot setback. So the neighbors were generally supportive of the current owner's use and development of their property in conformance with applicable town codes, but we ask that such developments respect the existing 15-foot setback that was established at the time these lots were created. Thank you for your consideration. Just in brief, I would like to say that there was a clear intention.
Your time is
Over
your time is up.
time. So you have one last sentence.
I muted her, sorry.
Oh, you muted her.
No.
Okay. All right.
One last.
Nobody wants to go that way, so we'll continue with public comment. If you'd come to the microphone, please identify yourself. That'd be great.
No, you're supposed to,
This
one, where
To
do
the
you want to
podium.
pipe?
The black one.
Either one,
The
okay.
big black.
Yes.
Is this on?
Can you
Yes.
hear her?
Yes.
Okay.
We hear it.
I'm Gabby McDonald. I am one of the property owners, lot A5 and part of A7. I'm actually going to read this on behalf of John Weissel, who is also a property owner of lot B4, and he's not able to be here. So he asked for me to read this. He said, "Thank you very much, everyone. I'm glad we are able to join. I'm glad I'm able to join this discussion. I have a couple of questions for staff. Is this a new application or a continuation of the last one on these lots? I'll just speak for a very brief moment. My family has owned the home at the southeast corner of the property for the last 23 years. I think everyone at this meeting would acknowledge the importance of neighborhood character and that issues of adjacency and views are precious to everyone. These concepts were clear when I read through the meeting minutes, the past memorandum from the town manager, and looked at everything when the town chose to originally replat these lots in their current configuration and sell or trade the properties. The notion that the setback was done for vehicular access, as has been suggested, the document clearly doesn't really support that. It is clear that the intent of the setback is about building adjacencies, views, and so forth, particularly given additional land that was being added to their subdivision by vacating a street. So that's just my perspective on it, and I look forward to the commission making its final determination on this.
Gabby, did you have some comments?
I also have a couple of comments of my
Do we
own.
reset the 3 minutes for her?
Sure.
Thank you.
The first is that the planning director misstated the rear yard setback in this zone district. It is not 15 feet. 3-204.c.6 minimum rear yard. A, principal buildings 15 feet or the average setback of the block in which the parcel lies unless modified by Hark. However, the setback shall not be less than 5 feet. And B, accessory buildings 5 feet. So, and then my only comment is just that I fully agree with what Lexi and John have both said and what was written in the letter that Lexi read as far as being in opposition of removing the setback. And I just want to share that. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabby. Anyone else? Okay, I will go back to our applicant representative. I've written down what I think is some questions that pertain to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So to the first question, there are no development plans or proposed buildings being considered as a part of this application. Just wanted to clarify that. And then I think I would defer to, I also have Mary Elizabeth Geiger here in the room, and she's also on the Zoom, but she's also in the room. So in the interest of not having echoes, we are on one mic.
Hi, Mary Elizabeth Geiger. I'm an attorney with Garfield and Hecht, and I do represent the applicant. Just wanted to address these questions about the, rear yard setback. Was it just for the access easement? Is it for some other purpose? And first off, it's really our position. I mean, the recorded documents only speak to, access from the rear being within this 15-foot setback. As staff said, that you needed to preserve that 15 feet to make sure that nobody built a building that then would prevent that rear access from happening. So unless or until the property owners, agreed on where access was going to be, you needed to make sure that one property owner didn't put something back there and then prohibit access from occurring. Our clients, bless you, whoever that was. Our clients purchased this property, based off the recorded documents, which do not refer to views at all. So you can't really burden somebody's property or create a benefit for others without recording that, because otherwise property owners don't have notice. There hasn't been any notice provided that the setback was anything more than for access easement. But even if, the rear yard setback is kind of a separate thing from just being for access, I think it's been clear from staff's report and staff's presentation and what Maura presented earlier too, that the code, the applicants here are not asking to get special treatment. They're just asking to, have their lots be treated under the land use code and what those underlying setbacks are, and have that be the default, just as it is for the surrounding lots there. So I think that's it as far as addressing public comment. As Mara said, there are not any development plans right now in front of you guys for consideration. It's just the removal of the 15-foot rear yard setback, and the access easement agreement. Thank you.
There were a couple of other questions here. Whether or not there was a different easement in front at the time.
I'll let Maura speak to
Yeah,
that.
I can speak to that. So there was a provision in the previous agreement that if they chose to use the rear yard setback, that there could be an option to the rear yard access. If they chose to come in from the back, there was an option to reduce the front yard setback to 5 feet, but that would have been subject to approval and review by HARC. So it would have been acceptable under the land use code, but then it would go in front of HARC as to whether or not that was an acceptable approach.
Any comment by staff on that one? Is that a correct interpretation?
That's correct.
Yes?
Yes, that is
Okay,
correct.
thanks, Ron.
That's how we interpret it.
And the third question was just how many curb cuts were proposed for Columbia?
None are proposed at this time.
Okay. Provisions in the agreement, though, allowed for 3. I think that was a graphic you presented, right, Ron?
That is our recommendation, that the points of access be limited to 3 on Columbia and 1 on Columbine.
Okay. Let's see. There was a question about whether or not this was a new application or a continued application. I believe this is brand new, yet considered to be new, or?
This is a new application.
Okay. And the comment about the rear yard average of the neighborhood, not just at 15 feet. Ron, did you want to
Yeah,
help us with that?
I did include that in the presentation. I just didn't read it that specifically, and mainly because there really aren't any others buildings to compare within that back or within that rear yard. all of the lots that have the rear yards are these lots. So 15 feet would be the rule, although Hart could reduce it.
Okay, so if I understand, and I'm just going to ask for the group here, if the vehicle access was removed from the rear, the 15-foot setback would remain for buildings?
For the principal building, correct?
Yeah. Is that clear for everybody? Okay. Any more public comment? All right, I'm going to close the hearing for public comment and go to deliberation. Is everybody good with that? So let's do it. Who wants to go first? Oh, well, they do. The gods have spoken. John?
I have to go first.
No, you don't have to. You're just looking.
I looked through all the materials in the packet and I looked through the criteria for decision, and it appears to me that this is meeting all the criteria listed in the code for the subdivision requirements. So I'm kind of on the fence, but it feels to me like this is approvable.
Okay. Peter, I'm just going down.
No particular order.
Peter,
So-
speak into your mic, please.
Sorry. Angela, your last question about the 15-foot setback to the principal, with that,
Yeah,
if vehicle access is not continued, or
right.
as I understood it, it's 15 feet or is approved by Hark,
Okay.
that it's not a hard 15-foot.
Okay.
And I'm like clarification on that. I think I heard that earlier. Okay. So I think that's a question that gets answered by Hark. Not, don't consider it a setback less than, more than 5 feet for safety.
Okay.
I think this is tricky. This, I think it's a situation that's somewhat unique. It's a funky neighborhood, perhaps. I don't mean that in a derogatory, but it's not typical that it doesn't have an alley, which the land use code and the 95% of the town has streets in the front and alleys in the back. This has a street in the front and no alley in the back. So a 5-foot setback to a 5-foot setback is a tighter than the land use code contemplates when setting setbacks. So I don't think it's just like other lots in town in that regard. It's quite different. But that's my take on that. And it appears that the neighborhood had some mention that we have seen in the letters and from 97 that that 15-foot rear setback or easement, whatever, did address some comments that were referenced in that from the neighbors. And
Regardless of access.
regardless of access, that I think it was, maybe it's an inference, it is mentioned, but at any rate, I am, I guess, challenged by that here at the moment.
Okay, fair enough. Charles, or?
And on the line, I guess I do think that there is some indication from the previous letters, or the letter from the town back in 1997, that when this land swap took place, that there was some negotiation and there was, I guess, concern for the adjacent neighbors for some sort of use and proximity. I think the letter from the town actually says the 15-foot setback was for a potential vehicular access And if the neighbor or those property owners decided not to have the vehicular access back there, then it would be backyard open space, which to me is, protecting the views of the neighborhood. And I think whether we call it a vehicular access setback or something else, I think, it is it was created as a setback for, no buildings. And, by default, that is providing a view corridor that I think the other neighbors, think is valid. And the current owners, or at least the town originally, everyone was in agreement to that. So I don't think we're taking away something. It was agreed upon. It is clearly in the plat, I guess, that there is a 15-foot setback there, but I think everyone, including the current owners, would be aware of.
Okay, Kathy?
I'd like to set some context for what was going on back then. The Pandora subdivision that's just above this was an early PUD for the town of Telluride in the ski era. And I'm not sure we ever had PUDs before that. And I know that applicant was trying to work with the contours of the land. It might not seem like it when you're on it, but he was. And so that's why it's kind of this arcing thing and these very different shaped lots. And he was trying to avoid, there's several drainages that come down that hill that frequently mud flow. And so he was trying to make those open space or not in the middle of a developable lot. So that created this unusual configuration of lots off of East Pandora Avenue. The town did all the stuff to the north and east as trade outs for Town Park. And that all started in the 80s. And then by the 90s, people were starting to build on these steep lots and build in north and in east, kind of northeast Telluride. And the houses were different shapes. The access was often from the front with a big garage door right in your face, whatever. And there was a reaction kind of against that was going on about the time that this came forward. So I think the part of the 15-foot vehicle access was try to recreate the alley scenario that's in middle and western Telluride that doesn't happen out here in East Telluride. And so that was put there. And to try to get garage doors and driveways off the front. Park was really working hard. That was probably about the time the Hark guidelines were changed to not allow front yard driveways on places like Oak Street and all the historic areas of town. And I'm not sure, somebody else who's more Hark oriented from that era, I'm not sure if we had we keep shrinking the limits of which part of the town of Telluride is in the historic district. And in the 80s, the entire town boundaries at that time, before several annexations, was in the historic district. It wasn't just shrunk down. So that this might have still been in the historic district when we were considering this, because I don't remember when that changed. All that being said, I want the resolution of approval, page 6 of our packet, to say, in the third line, I'll just read.
On the resolution?
On the resolution of approval, I wanted to say, the East Telluride addition to the town of Telluride, removing a designated 15-foot rear setback for vehicular access or for vehicle access on the plat. I want to add the for vehicle access words to make sure that we're not we're keeping the standard HARC procedure for setbacks in place. And then I think I'm hearing the town staff to ask for something in the actual resolution at some point. Maybe under therefore it be resolved, and then there's a number 1, maybe a number 2, that's something like access is limited to 3 points on Columbia Avenue and 1 point on Columbine Avenue.
Specifying the number.
Right, specifying the number, but not the locations. And I would feel a lot more comfortable if we either took a break or worked on the next item and came back to this, continue it till later in our meeting, and we had those revisions handed to us to read into the record, or I'm not sure. I'm trying to understand our new rules and how we would deal with these corrections or changes. I don't know if there's support for that. And I don't know what Todd's going to say or Angela's going to say.
Okay, so as I understand it, the resolution for approval, you're suggesting change, right?
Right.
And then would we be adding any whereases,
I
findings?
wouldn't add any whereases. I'm just going to add conditions where, I think it would go down
Modify
here where the
therefore,
access
be resolved.
limitations are
Okay,
spelled out.
yeah, I just wanted to summarize, make sure I understood.
That's what
So
I'm
everybody
asking
consider
for.
that, but Todd?
Yes, I would like those things included in the resolution that we will adopt or not. Having been on both sides of things like this before, I come down on the side of sticking to what has been recorded and not trying to get into the minds of people 15 and 20 years ago. It wasn't recorded as a vehicular access, it was just recorded as an easement. The words of the town manager say it's only if it's an agreement is unanimously reached by all the owners. We now have the owners agreeing. They're unanimous. So I think it complies with all of our requirements. No place in town does P&Z, in my knowledge, impose view corridors. That's done by HARC. So the questions of proximity and view corridors would be on whatever applications come after this. It's not part of this. So I, like Kathy, would like to have that verbiage in the resolution before making a motion.
Right. Okay. Well, from my perspective, I think there's been a certain reliance over time that there's going to be 15 feet of something, either a vehicle access or nothing there. And I think what Peter, you've said about the way that might be calculated versus 5 feet versus 15 feet, I think bringing any accessory unit within 10 feet of another 5 feet plus the 5 feet setback, that this is an unusual subdivision, weighs heavy on me because I think there's been a certain reliance. So if we could separate, certainly approve the removal of the access piece, but keep the 15-foot setback for building purposes, seems, I think, a reasonable.
So the 15-foot setback is the land use code. So I want to make it very clear, this is not a variance.
Right.
This is only removing the setback as it's been recorded on the plat right now. Once that is removed, the land use code then will apply as it does now, but we fall back on the limitations of the land use code, which HARC can then whittle down even more to create an even smaller building envelope once plans are submitted. But I want to make very clear that once the setback, if the setback is removed only by the plat, the 15-foot setback set by the land use code or the average of the surrounding
become the law.
properties,
Okay.
yes, will be applicable to the site with the 5-foot setback for accessory buildings. So that is still in effect. It will be in effect. You do not need to address that in this resolution.
Okay. Good. So have a couple folks on the fence over here. Do we, do we want to see the resolution written up? Is that something, John, you can do and we can look at it? So the resolution for approval, Kathy, is what you're thinking, or would you like somebody else to write that for you? Staff?
I thought I was told yesterday that staff should be writing this and handing it back to us. So I don't know what the rules are at the moment or the protocols. They're not rules.
So you can, if you adopt changes to this resolution through a motion, meaning I make a motion to adopt this resolution, whatever it is. And with these changes, we will make those changes in that resolution.
But we have to
Before you
craft
sign
it,
it.
is what you're saying.
We have to
What?
say it into the record.
We have to craft it.
You have to craft it and say it into the record.
It's the changes that you want to make that's not already written.
Okay.
You don't have to craft a whole new.
Does
wanna
it
pull that
pertain
resolution up
both to
again?
the motion as well as to the resolution?
So you're
Sorry,
making,
this is a kind of a new process for us, so we appreciate your patience.
so you would approach it by saying, I make a motion to adopt resolution number, blah, 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 whatever it is.
Right. Page number
Approving,
6.
blah, 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 as further detail, blah, and with the following changes, if you want to make any changes to it. And then you dictate exactly what you want changed. If you want to take off and say, you know, this thing should be green cheese, you can. I wouldn't recommend that because we're not talking about green cheese, but yes.
If we were going to limit access points to what we've been discussing, 3 on Columbia, 1 on Columbine, does that belong in the whereases or does it belong in the, as number 2 below the agreement and the where, and the now therefores, or does it go somewhere else?
So that is already in the conditions. It says the agreement shall also preserve the points of access from Columbia Avenue and Columbine Street as outlined in the original agreement.
There. All right.
So
Okay.
would you still want to add the numbers?
No,
I think that's actually a good idea.
Sure.
We had a
Oh,
question about
okay.
whether, where,
Yeah.
or what we had. So, Todd?
I'm ready to give it a try.
Oh, okay. So you're going to modify, you're going to propose what the resolutions would sound like and then do the motion for approval of it. Is that correct? I think.
I'm going to tell you what I think the resolution should read.
Okay. Yep.
We should discuss that. If we're in agreement, then we'll make a motion and include that in the description of the resolution.
That's how I understand.
Okay.
So
Say it very well.
now therefore be it resolved, number 1 says, the agreement to nullify rear access among the property owners shall be recorded at the time of the recording of the minor subdivision. I'm going to leave that alone because that's the first piece that Kathy talked about. We need that recorded. And that's included. And then following that, it says the agreement shall also preserve the points of access from Columbia Avenue. And I would say the up to 3 points of access from Columbia and 1 point of access on Columbine Street as outlined in the original agreement.
Okay.
So if I may ask, Ron, does the original agreement say that?
It does specify curb cut, so it identifies specific locations. So back when this went through originally, it was lots 5 and 6 and 7, 8 and 9. And there were a couple of places where there was shared access from 2 lots. So to limit it to 3 points of access, I think that was the intent of this condition, not specifically to the locations that were identified in the original agreement. Does that make sense?
Well, there are currently 4 lots. There were 5.
Yeah.
One has been vacated, so 5 and 6 are 5R, if I
Yes.
remember right. So that access easement would stay. The second one between the original 6 and 7 was to be shared. Now that that is gone, 5R has 1, 7 has 1,
Right.
8 has 1. Those are the 3 on Columbia. And the remaining is on the east side of lot 9. And I think what we have written is basically says that. Right?
Yes.
Okay, so any other modifications?
I don't think my other modification belongs in the resolution, but I do want it to say in the resolution of approval, which is our motion, that we're removing a designated 15-foot rear setback for vehicle access, just to make it super clear.
Right.
That the regular land use code setbacks and HARC procedures to modify them are in place. All right,
Okay, so I'm gonna state this.
but
Rem-
Todd has a reaction. to
Before
that.
you're ready
I
to,
have it doesn't, nowhere does it say for vehicular access.
Okay.
It just says it's an easement.
Well, it does in our resolution of approval right now. And what I think Kathy's saying,
No, it
It
doesn't.
doesn't, that, I
Well, it
wanted
says-
to say that.
yes, on the plat and optional.
your
rear
point, Todd,
access.
you didn't see it referenced
It
and
wasn't, it never has said for vehicular access. It's not written that way. So I don't want to write it in now.
Well, but that was the whole reason why they were making
Well,
it.
Again, I'm not gonna understand or try to understand what they were thinking when they wrote it. They wrote an easement.
But they also agreed to the fact that they wanted to they were going to all make that decision together so that one didn't access that piece without the other's knowledge. So I don't know how you can separate those two, but go ahead.
On this document, the 1997 approval, if you look at number 2, it talks about the 15-foot wide rear yard setback. It says included in the 15-yard rear setback shall be a vehicular access easement. So it does reference the vehicular access easement with that initial approval.
Right. That's the way I had understood it too.
Okay.
So as
Either
I
way.
read what Kathy is trying to say here, I've made a modification for everyone to consider. I move to approve the following resolution to grant the minor scale subdivision, blah, 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 removing a designated 15 rear setback for vehicle access within the 15-foot rear setback pursuant to the land use code section law, et cetera. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, I think you leave on the plat and optional rear access within the rear setback, I mean, we were trying to create an alley. The other thing I didn't say earlier is the town desperately needed more land to make the trade for the town park land. So they wanted to take part of the Columbine right of way and to make up enough land for it to be an equal value trade, square foot for square foot. The neighborhood and citizens at large in the town were concerned about losing the width of Columbine and losing the parking that might, the on-street parking that might go away. So that was one reason that we made the potential alleyway for those 5 lots. That was just, that's a way to look at it, but it was not like, oh, we don't care that we're giving up the Columbine right away. That was contentious at the time that this occurred.
So according to what you were telling us, that should become a whereas as a finding of fact.
The which part?
The part that Kathy is telling us,
Adding a vehicular access? Yes, you can put that where you choose to put that. If you want to put that down. See, the agreements nullify rear access among the property owners. You can put it right there.
The first whereas kind of already does that.
yes,
To
Can we
remove
make
the
it clearer?
designated-
Absolutely. It's up to your purview to do that.
rear vehicular access within that 15-foot setback?
We
Would
just
that
need to be very clear as to what you're saying and where you want to put it.
So I'm suggesting that in the first whereas, and because we have to approve this resolution, we're writing it right now, then we'll go back and make a motion to approve it, and then we will approve the resolution as we've modified it, just so everybody kind of
You'll
knows.
vote on it as you see fit.
Exactly. So the first whereas for this resolution says, whereas the owners of lots 5R, 7, 8, and 9, Block 20 East Telluride Edition request the minor subdivision application to remove a designated 15-foot rear setback and optional rear vehicular access within that 15-foot rear setback from the subdivision. That's a clarification that we're making. It's representing their application. Is that
You can do that, absolutely.
okay?
I would be more comfortable if we put for vehicle access at the first time it says, I mean, this it says the 15 feet 3 times, a designated 15-foot rear setback for vehicle access and optional rear access within that 15 feet rear setback from the subdivision. I mean, I want it to be clear that we're not erasing the land use code 15-foot setback. I want it to be overly clear.
So you want to
and-
mention it twice?
Well, it's in there twice, but I want to make sure that we're moving the designated vehicle access, 15-foot vehicle access, not the standard 15-foot land use code setback. And I don't know, I mean, I'm not exactly sure how to.
Okay,
do
so
that.
in the first whereas, going down to the point where we say to remove a designated 15-foot rear setback for vehicle access and optional rear vehicle access within that 15-foot rear setback from the subdivision.
Okay. that
And
makes
then
me
down
happy.
to the now therefore be it resolved, Planning and Zoning Commission of the Town of Telluride, Colorado approves the minor subdivision application to remove a designated 15-foot rear setback and optional rear vehicular access within that 15-foot rear setback from the subdivision with the following conditions.
And then there's
That's,
3 on Columbine, 2 on 1 on
That's every-
Columbine.
yeah,
Yeah.
got it.
3 on.
And then we have the first condition, first and only condition is I
with
also preserve the points of access from Columbia Avenue, parentheses, up to 3, and Columbine Street, 1 point of access as outlined in the original agreement. So how does everybody else feel about that? Yes, Todd.
We have inserted, if I heard that right, vehicle 4 times,
3 times. But yes.
twice in the
First one, and once
whereas,
under the now therefore.
and twice, that's 4. I can see 2, but I don't
But would
see
you, what
4.
is your proposal?
Well, I understand Kathy's point, and I would say in the first whereas, to remove a designated 15-foot rear setback for vehicular access
Okay,
from the subdivision.
Yeah, I think we can get rid of.
Of the
this-
second.
The second part of it. We can just get rid of that because it's no longer, it's not going to be optional.
so and optional, it's going to be for rear vehicular.
It's just going to say for vehicle access, and then we're going to strike optional rear access within that 15 feet
Yeah.
from the setback. We're
Can you
going
read it
to.
for me?
Whereas the owners of lots 5R, 7, 8, and 9, Block 20, East Telluride Addition request the minor subdivision application to remove a designated 15-foot rear setback for vehicle access from the subdivision.
Okay,
And it would be the exact same language down, repeated down at now therefore.
approves the minor subdivision application to remove a designated 15-foot rear setback for rear
Or vehicle access.
for, we'll get rid of rear, vehicular access within that 15-foot rear setback from the subdivision with the following conditions. Are we getting there?
Yeah. And Ally, does this make sense to you, what we're doing?
It does. I don't know if this level of wordsmithing is necessarily necessary, but it does make sense if that's
That's our
what makes
first
you feel comfortable.
whereas situation here, so hang with us here. Is how's you guys feel about that?
I'm happy if you're happy.
Okay. All right, so is everyone clear on those motions? Or on the resolution changes? Are we good with that? I'm not looking at you, I'm looking at these guys. So we could go ahead and entertain a motion, which is also modified for resolution approval. And I'll entertain that from anyone. On page 6, Kathy.
I move to approve the following resolution to grant the minor scale subdivision of lots 5R, 7, 8, and 9, Block 20, East Telluride Addition to the town of Telluride, removing a designated 15-foot rear setback for vehicle access on the plat and pursuant to the Land Use Code Section 6-402.c based on the findings and conditions set forth in the resolution attached to the staff memo dated June 20th, 2024, as modified tonight. This motion is based on evidence and testimony provided at a public hearing held on June 27th, 2024, with notice of such hearing provided as required by the Telluride Land Use Code.
Todd, second? No.
Before we second it, I think
Yes.
that we also need to include in that motion
Okay.
the changes to the resolution.
The access.
Yes.
Well, I said as modified tonight. Now, can we adopt the
We
should
need to
be-
state that.
Okay. All right.
So we need to say
Let me
something about
just do
points of
some-
access?
Is
Hang
it-
on.
This was noted in the staff report.
No, this is the one we just read about. Agreement shall also preserve the points of access from,
3 and 1.
yeah, so we might want to say as modified tonight, referencing.
Okay. I'm going to insert a new paragraph that's after I move and before the one starting with this motion. And it's going to say the changes to the resolution to tonight's meeting or in this meeting are adding, oh God, I would just love to have a newly written resolution that we could adopt.
Okay, that's not part of your motion.
No, I am withdrawing everything because I don't want to have to
So-
do this much changes.
If you don't make a motion on this and you wait to have it to read it later, you're gonna have to reopen this item from the top,
Through public.
go through, take public comment all again. We can't just hear the next item and then come back and make a motion on the first item.
I think we can add another sentence that would solve it.
You can add another sentence to the motion,
I'm gonna say,
but let's start the motion over, please.
okay,
So Kathy, if you could withdraw that motion.
Okay, I'll withdraw my motion.
Okay, and here's what I would recommend you do. So we have the language as written for resolution of approval. Whoever makes that motion is going to insert the for vehicular access phrase and strike the optional rear access within the 15-foot rear setback phrase. At the end of June 24th, 2024, I would just state with the following changes. And then whoever's making the motion, say in the first whereas clause, strike and optional rear access within that 15-foot rear setback. And in the therefore, strike and optional rear access within that 15-foot rear setback. And if you're adding that for vehicular access language, you can also add that in there. So say add for vehicular access, striking ... whatever language you want to strike. And then if you're going to include the points of access in that first condition, you can also say adding this following language. So you don't have to read the whole clause. You don't have to read the whole sentence. You can just specify what it is you want to strike and what it is that you want to add. And staff has listened to this. We will put it together before we have someone sign it, the chair sign it, then you will review and make sure that that aligns with the motion that was made. So it's as easy as just saying strike and add.
I am used to having staff be able to quickly write this up in like literally 3 minutes and hand it to someone to read. So I guess I'm being spoiled, but I would like to do that because it's getting a little complicated.
Anybody else want to make the same?
I'll do it.
Ron?
Keep in mind that once you say I move, everything you say after that and everything that is said,
is part of,
Piper has to deal with, and it's part of the record until
Only if
somebody
it's
says
seconded.
second. That's when it ends.
right. So we need to be very clear this round. Todd?
You can do it, Todd.
I move to approve the following resolution to grant the minor scale subdivision of lots 5R, 7, 8, and 9, Block 20, East Telluride Edition to the town of Telluride, removing a designated setback, removing a designated 15-foot rear vehicular setback on the plat pursuant to Land Use Code Section 6-402.c, based on the findings and conditions set forth in the resolution attached to the staff memo dated June 20th, 2024,
With
the following changes. First, whereas shall read, whereas the owners of lots 5R, 7, 8, and 9, Block 20 East Telluride Edition request the minor subdivision application to remove a designated 15-foot rear vehicular, inserting vehicular setback and striking an optional rear access within that 15-foot rear setback from the subdivision. And then in the now, therefore be it resolved, the Planning and Zoning Commission of the town of Telluride, Colorado
And you don't have to read the whole thing. Okay.
approves the minor subdivision application to remove a designated 15-foot rear vehicular setback, striking and optional rear access within that 15-foot rear setback from the subdivision. Continuing with the following conditions. And in the first and only condition, the agreement shall also preserve the maximum of 3 points of access from Columbia Avenue and 1 point of access from Columbine Street, as outlined in the original agreement. This motion is based on evidence and testimony provided at a public hearing held on June 27th, 2024, with notice of such hearing provided as required by the Telluride Land Use Code.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
John Miller seconds. All right. Thank you, Todd. Any further discussion?
No public comment at this time.
Okay, let's vote. Todd?
Todd, yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Angela, yes?
Charles, no.
Peter, yes.
Do I vote?
Well, hang on. You're an alternate. We have a quorum,
Alternate
so.
number two.
Yeah.
So John, yes.
Well, yeah, I mean, we only get 5 votes, so you're just silent.
Yep.
Sorry.
Okay.
But thanks for your
Yeah.
hang in. Okay, so we will go now to approving, reading the resolution. Is that correct? John?
No, that is
Nope.
done. You move on to the next
was-
item.
Okay, so everything that we've modified here is in the motion and will be put into a new resolution.
Yes,
which
the
for
resolution will be
signature.
modified with your changes.
Okay, everybody clear on
And
that?
yeah, and just because this is our first time doing this, when that's ready, you'll call Angela and she'll come down and read it and sign it. No?
That's the way it will always work.
Okay, but she can't sign
No,
it
it's
tonight.
Supposed to be signed tonight by the close of the meeting.
Yeah.
so I have to File it on time.
Whose timeline
Ron,
is
can we
that?
get that? And I'll,
Yeah, I can print it upstairs. Let me do that real quick.
did you get the changes in there?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll look at it before. Tonight. All right. This item is completed. We'll move on to the next one. Anybody need a break?
I'll take a break.
Yeah. Going to resume with item number 3 of our public hearing items. Amendment to Hotel Columbia PUD Planned Unit Development. Consideration of an amendment to the Hotel Columbia PUD Planned Unit Development pursuant to section 6-314.b at 301 West San Juan Avenue, parcel B, block 1 WTA, resulting from the renovation, rehabilitation, and new addition to the Hotel Columbia. Legal description, parcel B, block 1 West Telluride addition, address 301 West San Juan Avenue, zone district accommodations 2, owner Columbia Telluride LLC, applicant Chris Hawkins Alpine Planning LLC, and the staff member is Ron Quarles, senior planner, interim senior planner. Ron?
Yes, thank you, Chair and P and Z. So this is an application. I'm going to take my ears off because I can't hear myself. This is an application for an amendment to a planned unit development that was approved originally back in the early 1990s. The location is the Hotel Columbia PUD located at 301 West San Juan Avenue, the northeast corner of Aspen and San Juan Avenue. The Hotel Columbia has kind of a long history, not a long history, but a little bit of a history. It was constructed back in 1995-96, a 4-story building, 21 hotel rooms, traditional hotel when it was originally constructed with hotel hotbeds, as the term is used, for hotel occupancy. It over time, it converted to a condominium hotel arrangement. The purpose for this hearing tonight is to consider the PUD amendment for the demolition of 4-story section, east section of the hotel, and the new addition of the 3-story section that will replace it for a total area of 3,326 square feet. The net expansion will increase by 583 square feet. Total area 19,052 will increase to 19,635 square feet. The other change to the PUD is the modification of the condominium arrangements. What's being requested will reflect more of a traditional hotel. 1 condominium for 26 rooms, 26 beds, master hotel unit, 1 condominium for an employee dwelling unit, 1 condominium for the other employee dwelling unit on site, and then 1 condominium for a commercial restaurant, bar, and dining area. So just to kind of summarize how this evolved over time, it began in 1991 with the original PUD for 21 hotel rooms, restaurant, bar, and 2 employee dwellings. In the year 2000, the applicant or the owner came forward and requested the enclosure of the outdoor dining patio for the purpose of expanding the indoor dining. Then in 2001, the applicant or the owner requested a conversion of the 4th floor to a condominium penthouse with 4 short-term rental rooms. This was kind of the first step towards the conversion to more of a condominium hotel arrangement. In 2006, the PUD changed to reflect a full conversion condominium hotel development. And this was after changes were made to the land use code to accommodate the condominium hotel transitions. Total of 22 condo hotel units and 21 hotel rooms. Then in 2008, further modifications were made. Basically, not changing a lot other than some of the arrangements. There was the introduction of what was considered a condo hybrid, which allowed for kitchenette and area of 600 square feet in addition, or in excess of 600 square feet. The condo hotel units are limited to 600 square feet. This allowed for a larger unit with kitchenette for 2 units, one on the 3rd floor and one on the 4th floor. And that brings us back to today's application, which is kind of a full circle in some ways. The applicant is requesting a master hotel condo for 20 hotel units, 2 employee dwelling units under 2 separate condominium arrangements, and then a restaurant, bar, and dining as a commercial condominium. So it returns it back to what is more of a traditional hotel by bringing these 20 hotel units under a single condominium arrangement and for the purpose of short-term rentals or short-term occupancy. The PUD variations, and this is kind of going back in history, but these are the variations that were granted with the original PUD. In 1994, they asked for an increase to the height from what was required, which was 35 feet, to allow it to go up to 38.75 feet for the primary roof form, and then up to 40 feet for the turret. They also requested that the maximum site coverage be increased from 40% to 57%. Then in 2000, when the request was in front of Planning and Zoning Commission to expand the restaurant or to expand the indoor dining, the maximum site coverage that was requested increased from 57% to the 60%. In addition to those variations, Planning and Zoning Commission also approved 2 waivers to required parking and 6 parking spaces as payment in lieu. So they were bought out rather than providing for physical spaces. So the 19 spaces that were required, the hotel was providing 11 physical spaces with these waivers and payments in lieu. When that was approved, a condition was required that they have an on-site valet 24 hours per day, and that's continued throughout the years. The public benefits. Back in 1994, this was land that was south of San Juan Avenue that was owned by Telsky at that time. They worked with Telsky as a partner to provide landscaped area as a part of the PUD benefit for the hotel. The land is currently owned by the town of Mountain Village, the land just west of the gondola. At the time, they also put a restriction back in 1994 that there wouldn't be any condominiumization of the hotel, that it would remain a traditional hotel. However, again, that's been modified, so that PUD benefit is no longer in effect. They asked for an expanded setback along Aspen Street for purpose of pedestrian movements and a vehicle turnaround. And they provided for some landscaping on the east side to reflect the character of what was happening on South Oak Street. And then finally, in 2000, they came back, and because they enclosed the outdoor patio area for expanded restaurant use, they added a benefit that required the restaurant and the cellar, tasting cellar, be available for public nonprofit educational groups. So staff has looked at this application and we've determined that the request as it's been brought to the Planning and Zoning Commission is consistent with the master plan. It does reflect the intent of the commercial core planning sub area. It supports the master plan goals. We've have an addendum to the staff memo. I think it's a page long. I don't think we've ever had that many parts of the master plan that it actually was consistent with, but we've added that as a part of your consideration. And then finally, the request is consistent with the accommodations to zoning. Off-street parking, there is a little bit of a reduction of parking required based on the uses. We've determined 15 required. Again, 11 physical spaces have been provided with the waiver that was granted back in '94 and the payments in lieu. We are requiring that the full-time valet be continued as a condition of approval. We did have a concern, and I'll talk about this a little later, but we did have a concern about the location of the dumpster within that area. We'd like them to take another look at that and come back before park approval, make sure that we're satisfied that the vehicular movements are adequate in the parking area. Affordable housing. So 2 on-site employee dwellings were provided in 1994 with the approval. They also provided, the owner provided deed restriction of 1 off-site unit and then a 15% payment in lieu. That ended up with what, according to the record, 75 square feet of housing credit. Then back in 2000, when the expansion of the restaurant space occurred, the housing mitigation that was bought out, and at that time was $11,641. So the applicant has indicated, and we agree with the applicant, there is no additional mitigation required. Technically, the hotel units have decreased from 21 to 20, so there's no requirement for additional mitigation. And the commercial net floor area has decreased by 76 square feet. If you read the staff memo, we did identify that on the street level, there's actually an increase, but because there is a reduction in the basement based on some of the modifications, some of the areas for hotel have been modified as commercial. There's actually a net decrease to the square foot or the floor area. The applicant has indicated that they would be they would like to or like for your consideration to contribute $25,000, and that could go to either affordable housing or infrastructure. And we do have something that's in the conditions that I'll present later, but it does, what we'd like to do is reflect more of what would be required if we determined that this was an actual increase in the floor area, which it is not. So the findings we've identified in our staff memo within the resolution, and I'll go ahead and read those. The application meets the applicable requirements, purpose, and intent of the Telluride Land Use Code. The amendment to the Hotel Columbia PUD meets the criteria under section 6-314 of the Telluride Land Use Code, minor modifications and amendment to a PUD, and shall constitute authorization for the applicant to prepare and submit a final development agreement in accordance with the representations made by the applicant and conditions applied to the approval. And then finally, the applicant or the application is consistent with the Telluride Master Plan. We have 11 conditions that we've included in the resolution. I won't go through all of them, but starting with this first one, the applicant contacted me just before the meeting and would like to modify the first condition to read 26 hotel beds as opposed to 26 hotel rooms. We're not in disagreement with that if the P&Z prefers to accomplish that modification. Condition number 2 it establishes 2 units for the employee units, 1 hotel unit with 20 keys and ancillary hotel uses, and 1 commercial unit, and the common areas. Any changes to the condominium map will first require approval of a PUD amendment. As a public benefit for the renovations permitted by the PUD, the owner shall contribute $30,000 to the town of Telluride Affordable Housing Program. That differs from the $25,000 based on the calculation that we've included in the memo. If there were no changes, no modifications in the basement, we would actually see an increase on the street level to a measure of $30,000 in affordable housing contribution requirements. It's not required. It's what we're recommending as staff, that it be bumped up to the $30,000 to reflect what we would require otherwise. And I can clarify that further if you'd like, and later in the meeting. Number 4, public benefit. We've included the language in the previous resolution, or not resolution, in the previous agreement referring to the use of the restaurant and tasting cellar for the public benefit. Condition number 5, we require the valet parking provided as a full-time attendant for 24 hours. Again, that's already in place. This will memorialize it in the new agreement or in the new approval. Number 6, the applicant shall find a location for the trash enclosure that will prevent any disruption to the vehicular circulation and parking to the satisfaction of staff. So this is something we'd like them to work on a little bit more as it goes forward through the HARC review. Number 7, we're continuing the waiver on the parking as originally approved, but we want to make sure that the condition or the approval that was originally granted in 1994, that the waiver is not for the employee parking, but is only for the commercial. In other words, employee parking is provided for the 2 employee units. Number 8, parking shall not be sold, leased, or otherwise conveyed to other parking uses. Number 9, landscaping enhancements. These will be new landscaping enhancements on the east side of the building. We'd like them to respect the character of the adjoining properties along Oak Street. And this was consistent with the original condition that was provided at the time of approval in 1994. Again, this is subject to HARC review, but we want to make sure that the landscaping enhancements do make things or are consistent with what's happening on Oak Street. Number 10, this one's a little bit unusual. The area that's south of San Juan Avenue is currently owned by the town of Mountain Village. It was provided as a public benefit with the original agreement, our PUD approval. We want to make sure that there is some language that preserves the landscaped area. In other words, it's in perpetuity. If for any reason it does go away, we would like condition that they provide a donation of open space of comparable size or value to the town of Telluride. I think the intent of this is because it's held by a separate property owner. We want them to work, we want the owners to work with the town of Mountain Village to secure this as a public benefit tied to the hotel as it was originally intended. Number 11, improvements to the sidewalk, ADA ramps and crossings along the street frontages of Aspen and San Juan shall be included in the development agreement with necessary financial guarantees. And these reflect some of the information that's provided with the plan set that was provided with the application, the public improvements. So that concludes the conditions that we're recommending. Again, our new format, we have a motion, suggested motion. If you support the application, resolution of approval, we recommend that if you make any changes to the conditions, the findings, that you make those changes prior to a motion, as you've done with the last application. We did receive one letter from the public, actually from the property owner. No, I'm sorry. Yes, sorry, I'm getting them confused. We did receive one letter from an adjoining property owner within the notification area. That was distributed by email to the Planning and Zoning Commission members. And with that, that concludes presentation. Be glad to try to answer any questions.
All right, I'll start with Todd, then Kathy.
Two questions, Ron, or clarifications. And the first one may be directed at the applicant. The 20 rooms, 26 beds, I got lost in that.
Yeah, I understand.
Okay.
Yeah, it's 20. So what they're going to end up with is 20 keys, 20 units, 26, but 26 beds.
So, yeah, if you can
Okay.
clarify
They said
that,
2 rooms.
super. The applicant will
Okay.
clarify that, Ron.
And the second one is in the conditions, number 10, the dedication of open space if that property south of the street gets developed. Is there any restriction on where that open space is? Can it be up on the airport, for example? Does it have to be within the town?
If that's the preference of the Planning and Zoning Commission, we'd be glad to include that as part of the condition. If you want to specify that it is within the town limits, that's totally fine.
Okay.
Was that it, Todd?
That's it.
Okay, Kathy.
We're in the process of getting a new gondola probably in the next 5 or 6 years. So I'm wondering with number 10, what happens if the new gondola probably won't be drastically realigned, but a gondola, hub building could be much bigger than what we have now and take over that open space. And that's what that land was intended for. So what is your vision if the gondola building needs to grow as part of our gondola improvements that we need as a region?
Well, yeah, and again, I think the intent is that we require as a condition that the applicant, the owner, works with the town of Mountain Village to satisfy the landscaped area that was provided originally with this approval. That may mean that some of the area will decrease, but they need to provide some demonstration that they're trying to accomplish what was originally accomplished with PUD approval.
And my next question is with parking, if to really make the dumpster area functional, if they chose to go to 10 spaces on site, my question is, would they still be compliant?
Well,
Even
good question.
as your number 8 said they had a surplus of parking.
Yeah, you're right. Now, 15 required, but they're actually providing 19 with the waivers and the 6 payment in lieu parking spaces. So technically, yeah, they are meeting the requirement.
Okay. And then I don't know if we need to go look at the employee thing or not, but since, all of these amendments happened, we've done a couple of things at least with our employee mitigation. One is we increase the amount of space that each employee gets. So if you were generating 3 employees, you now have to give more space than if you were generating 3 employees in 1994. So I don't know if that's been factored in. And I don't know if the buyout rate of today for employee housing is a little different, like higher than the buyout rate from the 2000s, the 90s and the 2000s. So I don't understand where they really are on employees. I mean, I would have loved to see the math of if this were a brand new project today, no past history, what would their employee generation be? And do we need to track their offsite employee unit and make sure it never goes back to the free market? Those are questions I have for you in terms of their employee mitigation.
Well, we didn't do a calculation as if it were a new development from a total floor area. We did provide some numbers based on if we counted the 26 or if we counted the hotel rooms, but that's not really good science. We probably shouldn't have done that, or I shouldn't have done that. We did calculate though, if based on the total area that was increased on the street level, that would require approximately $30,000 in affordable housing based on our current calculation.
And do you know if the offsite employee unit from long ago is still an employee unit and deed restricted?
I believe it is. Chris could probably confirm that.
Yeah, if you can clarify that when you respond,
Okay.
that'd be great in your presentation. Yeah, thank you. So we don't know what the buyout rate is, right?
We don't know what the new calculation would be if we were just starting at 0, starting with today's plan and
Yeah.
today's calculations. Okay.
That it? I have a question about the trash enclosure situation and the 15 versus 19. Would that still be the case today if it was a new project? Are they still, still have 4 spaces more than they?
Well, that's based on the number of units and the number or the floor
Okay.
or the square footage for the commercial.
Okay. Which is a little less now than it
Yes.
was then. Okay.
Right.
So, and how would, in terms of process, how does that work? They propose or show you something different and have a staff review and then it moves forward?
Yeah,
We would see it again. Is that right?
I mean, we'll have opportunities working, well, we're one department now, so anything that goes in front of HARC, we'll have an opportunity to review that based on HARC's preferences and what we're including as a condition of approval.
So condition 6 is basically heads up to HARC to please look at this and resolve it.
And work to resolve it to the satisfaction of staff.
Okay. Anybody else? Yes, John.
Ron, I'm curious, what's the current arrangement for the bicycle parking in the landscape area? Is there a legal easement or is there anything in place at all? It's just there?
Or Chris could probably clarify that. I do know that during COVID, the town of Mountain Village worked with the restaurant owner to provide outdoor dining within that space. And it was kind of a temporary situation. But as far as I'm aware, I I'm not real certain, I guess, as to the current status of any agreement with the hotel and Town of Mountain Village.
That's fine. The applicant's nodding that they can answer, so all good. Thank you.
Good.
Peter or Charles? No? And Kathy, you have another
I just
question?
have one last question. I believe, and I want you to verify or correct me, please, that the reason the parking has decreased is that there are commercial spaces, restaurant space, and very recently, I'm not sure, 5 years ago, when we took away all parking requirements for restaurants. Is that
Yes.
correct?
You're correct.
Okay.
Yeah, my question to you, Ron, is about the condition of that area south of, I guess it's Gus's Way now, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and what is our purview to stipulate how that's maintained?
It is a condition of approval, and we would, if that were modified, it'd be like other things, a code enforcement kind of issue. If we observed any changes to that landscaped area, we would probably, we would hopefully contact the owner and let them know that there is this condition that's in place that they have to provide for a comparable area.
Yeah,
and that
I'm
they
not
can't-
really,
Is that?
yeah, I'm not really talking about that. I'm talking about the existing condition that it's in.
Oh, the existing condition.
Yeah.
So it was meant to be rough kind of landscaping along the edge of the roadway, more generous landscaping along the river corridor. I think the applicant would be willing to work with Town of Mountain Village if there were any kind of upgrades to the landscaping. We didn't put that as a condition, but if that's something that you're concerned about, you can present, or you can request that, at least a response from the applicant on that.
Yeah, I'm trying to understand number 9, landscape enhancements shall be
I'm
accomplished.
sorry, you're talking about along the east side of the building.
Well, actually, yeah, I'd like to know what those are or what you're talking about as well, because from the site plan, it doesn't look like there's any room to do anything, but I'm also concerned about the condition of the area
Yeah. And
that south of there.
The applicant did provide some landscape drawings as part of the packet. And I'm sure Chris could clarify what they intend to do. It will need to go in front of Hark, including the landscaping improvement.
Okay, then that's an applicant question to answer. Anybody else? Do we want to ask the applicant for their presentation? We ready? Okay, go for it. Please identify yourself.
Sure. Good evening, Chris Hawkins with Alpine Planning.
Chris, can you move that microphone up to?
Can.
Thank you.
There you
Is that
go.
better? Yes, yeah. And what is this super?
Oh, it's
Nope,
stuck on there.
it's stuck. It's
Jim, that one's a wireless. It's
Okay.
helpful.
Okay.
Glad I didn't pull real hard then.
Yeah.
So sorry about that. Jim Mahoney.
Jim Mahoney as well, attorney for the applicant.
So just, I don't want to forget this because this is really important in the beginning. First off, there's no easement for the bike rack today. There's no easement for the landscaping. And we can get more into that later, but I'll cover that a little bit more in the presentation. But as far as additional employee housing mitigation, section 3720B1 of the land use code, redevelopment of a pre-existing use and change in use states redevelopment or remodeling of an existing use or the change from one use to another use is exempt from the requirements of this section, provided such activity does not create additional employment generation as determined by table 1. And we're actually decreasing the commercial, as you'll see in my presentation, by it's 617 square feet is a total reduction. So that's a big reduction in employee generation, and we're reducing by 1 hotel unit. So we're going the opposite way. If we were adding hotel units or adding commercial, we'd have to definitely propose mitigation. So just
Thanks for that
out there.
clarification.
If I could share my screen too. So thank you very much. Behind the scenes, we've been working on this for what feels like 18 months now, if not longer. And I know that, you know, Bridget and her family have been thinking about this for a while. So Columbia Telluride LLC, it's Bridget and Bruce Evans. Sorry, I gotta get this minimized. They own all the condominium units in the hotel now. It's a mixed-use property containing 14 condominium hotel units with 21 keys. It's been 21 keys since 96 as it's evolved. That has never changed, just to be clear about that. And so we are proposing to go from 21 keys to 20 keys. 3 commercial condominiums and 2 employee condos. Again, it was already mentioned, it was approved in 1994 and it got its permit in 1995 and its CO in 1996. The PUD history, Ron went over this quite a bit. I did want to touch on when public benefits were required, and that was with the original PUD because of the variations. And then again, with the 2000 PUD going from 57% to 60%, there was again that variation. The public benefit was the use of the restaurant space and the tasting cellar with those terms that are outlined in the PUD agreement. The other PUD agreements were really shuffling around what's happening in the hotel. It never really changed. And it, you know, the 2008 stuff was geared around the condominium hotel regulations and how those were really hot at the time. And I think we're all lucky that they never got sold to individual parties in whole, because one did and then they got bought back. But if it had been, we couldn't be talking about trying to get back to a pure hotel or hotbed hotel. And understand that that's not seen as a public benefit as much as it used to be, but I think for the community it is myself. These are all, and I just, you know, we are not changing any of the variations. So I would consider this a by right development under the PUD. I think that's really important to note. As far as the 1994 benefits, I copied this out of the actual memos that were done, but landscaping, you know, the condominium hotel use and deed restriction, but I want to touch on the landscaping. Landscaping and bike route south of San Juan Avenue between the gondola and the river, and a new spur access to the river trail. So, and actually spur was built too. So we provided that and we showed that, and TSG owned the land at that time, and TSG granted an easement for that landscaping at that time. But once track B, which is San Juan Avenue, was dedicated to the town, which it was on a plat, that easement went away. So there's no easement for that today. There's no easement for the landscaping or any of that stuff. And then there was also this provision of land for a hammerhead turnaround because there was a concept of actually trying to stop traffic onto San Juan Avenue and create that as a true pedestrian streetscape, which we think is a grand idea that should still be explored someday. Seriously, because if you think of that gondola plaza and having a walking plaza down there with the rest of, you know, development to the west of here, it would be nice. You know, it might be tough. And then the 2000 PUD public benefit, it's in the current PUD agreement. We were proposing no changes to any of the public benefits at all. And what was in your packet was a package that just showed proposed changes to the PUD. So all the conditions relative to PUD benefit, in our opinion, could go away because we're not proposing to change those at all. If you want them in there just as extras to make sure, that's fine, but there's no intent to change those at all. So part owner since 2018, the Evans acquired 100% interest from all the owners. Now are proposing to convert this from its current status to a full service, yet intimate boutique hotel with an emphasis on personal attention and service. Again, this is an important legacy asset for themselves in the town of Telluride, and they plan to significantly invest to renovate and upgrade the property from its current 3-star rating to a 4-star property. I mean, this is a millions of dollar project that benefits certainly the Evans, but also it benefits the community. Again, there's a quality team of hospitality architects and designers that are behind the scenes. You don't see them in this, but they've been working on this. There's restaurant designers, interior hotel designers, their property management company, Coral Tree. Everyone has had input into this plan. And I would also note that we've got a term resource engineering group out of Gunnison, I believe it is, or Crested Butte, are helping out to create a really as energy efficient hotel as possible. The new massing on the east side of the building with the well-conceived San Juan Avenue facade offers an opportunity to really bring more vibrancy to San Juan Avenue. Dylan Henderson's also online. He'll talk about this in a little bit. But we're expanding the restaurant space on the full first level, even on that addition. So that's really engaging that space more. And also too, I don't know, and Dylan will talk about this, the building right now is pretty non-conforming with the design guidelines. And again, the design of this from Lake Plato is really to create a better front door relationship to Station Telluride and the ski plaza that invites people into the restaurant and bar and really creates a nice pedestrian corridor within the civic streetscape. The new addition is 3 stories compared to 4 stories, and it's designed as a secondary volume to the existing Victorian building structure. We went through several design iterations and listened to town staff carefully. And we actually reduced a floor off in that conversation with town staff and provided way more stepping. So we really listened to John at the time when she was here. And it's really intended to provide an architectural transition from the hotel to the neighboring structures. And this is what I think is the fun part for this, for the community and the hotel. It's really improving the 28-year-old property by completely replacing, reconfiguring the relocation of all building systems that are nearing the end of their life cycle with modern energy efficient systems. And they include the elevator, HVAC systems, and building ventilation, refurbishment or replacement of the metal roof, the snow melt system, and the parking court and the adjacent public sidewalks. Again, this is huge for energy savings. We're not claiming that as a PUD public benefit, even though we might be able to. That's just more of a conversation than we wanted to have, but we want you to recognize that that's a huge benefit. There's probably no insulation underneath that current snow melt. And so this is really going to reduce the carbon footprint of the hotel. Replacement of balconies with 42-inch high. This is more of a code issue, but it's still important. Reverting the condominium hotel units back to hotel units and suites, as I mentioned earlier, hotbeds. Redesign of all the hotel spaces, units, and bathroom layouts and fittings and fixtures, lobby and service areas, including replacement of all hard and soft furnishings, including rugs, furniture, upholstery, mattresses, pillows, towels, windows, and all those decorative items. And then review of all electrical systems, interior and exterior lighting, and life safety items throughout the property. And then technology upgrades to improve connectivity. And then this is important, renovation of the deed restricted units too, that these aren't just being left alone, replacing dated kitchens and bathroom fixtures, and again, adding in-unit stackable washers and dryers. There's also renovation of the lower level and first floor restaurant and kitchen and dining areas, including new ventilation and other systems, lighting, furniture, fixtures, and equipment. And it really is, it's a full remodel that's being designed by a really great restaurant design group. So it's going to, and what's really important to note, and this was something that was mentioned last time, is that the number of seats is not going down at all. It's staying the same. So that was mentioned at the last meeting. Another important element, more for the neighbors than for you maybe, is relocation of mechanical systems from ground level restaurant vents to the rooftop. And that's really going to mitigate odors to the neighbors and get it up high on the roof. And there's also a new rooftop mechanical bay where all the equipment's going to go, HVAC equipment, again, all that sound and everything is just going up instead of being on lower levels. We're not seeking any variations to the PUD, but again, these high level changes, the addition itself, Ron covered that. We're only doing a 3% increase in floor area. At the Hark level, this could have been almost a minor or insubstantial application, but it got elevated up because of its significance. It's a big remodel, right? And we understand that, and we're going with that process, but it's a fairly small, change to the hotel. I want to talk about this a little bit. The number of hotel keys, and I'm going to say this interchangeably, hotel keys, units, or rooms, but we want to use units as much as possible. It's going from 21 to 20. The number of beds today is 21. That's going to 26. So it's 5 additional beds, even though one room is being reduced. But and that's why underneath that first condition, it needs to say 20 hotel units or rooms, not 26 beds, because that's not what we're doing here. And everything's gauged on hotel units or rooms. So we also want to amend the current condominium map for the property, which we hope you think is a good change. Again, going to the hotel unit ownership and creating this pure hotel again. If it would have headed down the path that I was unfortunately involved with in 2005, and it was sold, a lot of these could have been cold, empty beds. So this is a great change, I think, for the community and not selling these units. And then the condominium description that Ron went through is correct. It's going to be simplified quite a bit to be a hotel unit, a restaurant unit, and then 2 units for the employee housing units. So again, reduction of 1 key, and that goal was just to get to a 4-star designation with larger, nicer rooms. The unit sizes range from approximately 303 square feet to 698 square feet, with an average of approximately 499 square feet. This is a little bit different than what was in our narrative because there was an addition of a maid's closet and some insulation with some slight changes to what we put in the package. Again, I already talked about the beds. The PUD changes, this table right here really shows you from a floor area basis. But big picture, you can see we're going from 3,561 square feet of commercial to 2,944 square feet of commercial. That's a reduction of 617 square feet. So a significant reduction without, again, reducing the number of seats. Some of you may have been here for the prior work session where our clients were asking for adding a multifamily dwelling to kind of help, justify all these expenses. And that has been withdrawn from the package just through the remodeling and design of the hotel and looking at the restaurant. There just wasn't enough room to do a really good restaurant and to do a really good hotel. And so that got out of the equation, and that was a huge reduction in value at least, but it was a change that was desired by the owners because they really want to do the right thing here. The Telluride Land Use Code PUD regulations do not require new public benefits because the PUD amendment maintains the PUD requirements and significantly enhances the current PUD. I think through all those changes we talked about, you can see how this is really a big improvement overall. While there are no variations, the owners still agreed to donate $25,000 for this. We were not approached about the $30,000 until we got the memo. My client has not said no to that, but it was just came out of that. And the logic in that, because of the shift from the lower floor to the upper floor, and if you had to do this, it's hypothetical. But in the end, it's something that I don't think my clients disagree with unless she kicks me here and lets me know.
She should kick you anyway.
Yeah, I know. She can't. She's right behind me. So we already talked about no housing mitigation required. I don't want to belabor that and how we're reducing everything. And then, overall, I'm going to turn it over to Dylan Henderson for a little bit, who's online. And then after that, I just have a few follow-up slides.
Okay.
What's that? Okay, so overall, Kathy's reminding me that, there we are. Yep, you have 30 minutes. I'm not sure how much.
I hadn't heard the time limit, so thank you for sharing.
Yeah, I wasn't aware, but where are we? Yeah, we haven't either.
We maybe need 5-10 more minutes max.
Okay, we'll hold you to that then. Thank you.
Give you an idea, that started at
Dylan,
7:52.
we're getting a lot of
so we have quite a
feedback
bit of
from where we're
time.
at.
Hi, Dylan Henderson. Can you all hear me okay?
We can't. There's some feedback occasionally, so don't move.
I won't move. Yeah, so I'll just go through this quickly just to sort of walk through the evolution of the design. So we had,
Dylan, just to interrupt you for a moment, do you have 2 devices on? There's an echo as well.
I don't.
I think it's just because it's so loud, it's reverberating in your head.
Is your phone on? Have anything on it? Or maybe
No,
turn
just-
him down.
Just computer. Do I sound bad?
That's
No,
better.
That is better. Yeah. There you
Yeah,
go.
thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, I'll just go through the evolution of the design quickly. So our first meeting with P&Z was a work session on October 26th, and then we went on November 15th to HARC for a work session as well. Working with Jonna on the design, we originally came in with a 4-story addition on the east end of the project in the location where this sort of poorly conceived 90s addition that you see on the screen in the lower right corner. The concept, of course, is to remove that addition and come in with a new addition. And I'll speak to the architecture a bit. Jana and the staff originally, when we sat down with them, said, you know, we'd really like you to look at reducing the mass and scale on the east side of the project. And we came back with a proposal at 3 stories where we were stepping back from both San Juan and stepping back from and stepping down from the west side of the building, the existing building, to the east side of the building. And staff seemed to think that that was quite successful. And we had a good HARC work session meeting at that period of time too. So I'll speak for Ted Flato a little bit. Lake Flato's been point on the design side of this. And Ted Flato's concept on this was that we really needed to match the civic scale of the gondola plaza and the existing buildings along San Juan. And so when you look at Camel's Garden and you look at where Oak is and you look at all of these buildings that are along San Juan, we wanted to have a similar civic scale and sort of grand architecture that had a level of gravitas to that. And I think that Lake Flato and through the subsequent HARC work sessions and working with staff that we've accomplished that. So you can see here, this is a 3-story addition on the east side of the hotel. We set back the upper story from San Juan. And if you look at this building in profile, which we'll do in the elevation looking at the south profile, you'll see that we sort of step from the west to the east on the project. So the upper drawing there, if you go back one, Chris. Yeah, that's the existing streetscape. So you can see sort of the mass and scale of the building there. And that's sort of a poorly done hardy board 90s addition to the building. If you go to the next slide, this is where we have, you know, accomplished this 3-story addition on the east side of the project. We have a connector which reduces the sense of the scale as we sort of go from west to east on the building. And it feels like it matches sort of the gravitas of the architecture along San Juan. The next was the restoration of the hotel that Chris spoke to, which is going sort of from a 3-star hotel to a 4-star hotel and really making some improvements on the pedestrian level. So we're talking about extending the restaurant the whole way along San Juan Avenue. And so that will be a beautiful window wall of glass. We're looking at doing, you know, thermally broken steel windows and doors or something to that effect to make this a really beautiful pedestrian experience along San Juan. The big one that we had to accomplish on this was the relocation of the mechanical equipment. Currently, it's at the ground level of the hotel. If you go to the next slide, Chris. Yeah, so in the it's currently in that right corner, sort of in that niche of the hotel there. And obviously, it's not been great for the neighbors of this hotel, and the sound obviously is not mitigated. And so a big impetus of this design is to get that equipment up to the roof and get that sound isolated to the greatest extent possible so that we can get all of that sound out of that courtyard, essentially behind the building on that northeast corner, and move it up onto the roof. And I think that's going to demonstrably help the property and the neighbors in the neighborhood. So that's a big one for us. The trash enclosure, if you hover your cursor over where we've, there. In that upper left corner. So that's on that northwest side of the building. So currently the trash is picked up along San Juan, and it again is located where that mechanical equipment is in that northeast notch in the building. We've been talking with Public Works, and Public Works is very supportive of us getting the trash picked up along Aspen Street as opposed to blocking the traffic along San Juan. We just feel that it will be a more convenient location for the trash and recycling to be collected by Bruin Waste. And so we proposed that there's an existing electrical transformer in that upper northwest corner. That we propose that we're putting our trash enclosure right next to it. We still have clear access for vehicular and pedestrian access coming off of Aspen Street on that west side. And of course, we'll work with staff during our HARC review process to make sure that they're comfortable with the vehicular access. But currently, that's where we have the trash enclosure located. Go to the next slide, Chris. We have that, the sort of the code on that. It has to be substantially open in terms of the metal mesh and things like this. We'll of course block that from the north side, facing south into the vehicular drive. Those will be sliding mesh doors that will be able to be slid open to be able to access that trash, roll it out very easily, and be able to get it out to Aspen Street. And so we feel like this will be a great improvement. The other thing that was really important was that Coral Tree, who's working with the owner on the operation of the hotel, has sent a letter and stating that, we'll work very diligently to make sure that that trash pickup is done during working hours, that the staff is all trained up on being very conscientious of not making really loud noise, dumping huge cans of bottles and things like that into the trash, and just making sure that we're very conscientious of the neighbors and what it means to move trash around the property, obviously. Going back to the site plan quickly, Chris, as has been talked about, the parking that we're required to have is still here. If we reduce the parking, which Ron sort of alluded to and what some of the board has alluded to, would that increase the ability to sort of move trash elsewhere? That would be a study that we would have to do. Currently, there's nothing on the table to reduce parking. I think parking is pretty important, but I'll leave that obviously to Chris and the owner. Yeah, so that really is what we're looking at. If you go to the next couple slides, Chris, just to sort of go through this.
Which slides were you talking about?
Oh, sorry, I was thinking the elevations, if we had those.
Oh yeah, I just have those. But
that's great. So I'm happy to answer any questions on the architecture. I have the Revit model if there's anyone asking for dimensional characteristics, but otherwise I think we've done a nice job on the design side of this. And of course, we'll be working with HARC through our review process.
Okay. I'll wrap up pretty quickly here. So condition number one, we do need to get that corrected to be 20 beds. Again, if you 20 hotel rooms overall. And condition four, that we're not sure why that condition's in there because we're not proposing to change it. So either the elimination.
Which number was that?
Condition 4.
It's right up there. You can read it.
So if
It's
we
up
can.
Oh, there it
there.
is. Okay, yep.
I mean, if you want to keep it in, that's fine, but we're not proposing to change it. So it really isn't a needed condition, but we'd rather just have the current PUD language prevail because Jim took a look at it and there looked like there might have been a little bit of difference, but we're not proposing any changes to that.
And maybe it just simply states that all previous PUD public benefits remain, as stated.
Condition 7, it's not a big deal. That one can stay the same, but we thought it was clear if that's the intent is parking for the 2 employee units shall be provided on site. That's the case now. That's the case in the future. But the thing that we were a little concerned about, we don't want to affect the waivers or the parking payment in lieu that was done back in 96. We want to leave old as old, new as new. And then, condition 10, this is one where we may have to request a continuance because this condition as written is very problematic because you mentioned it, gondola is going to change. We don't know what's going to happen. Mountain Village will never give us an easement for that landscaping. It's an old condition that's been met. And we feel like it's been met, and the town's actually signed off on that easement agreement in the past that said, and it acknowledged once that easement, once tract B was donated to the town, the easement goes away. The town had signed off on that easement. So the town knew that easement would go away someday. And so we also don't know if the land could be conveyed to SMART because for transportation issue, there's lots of variables.
Yeah, and so both Bridget and I have actually talked to the Mountain Village about this landscaping area. One of the things we talked about, hey, is there better access opportunity over there? And the Mountain Village was pretty clear with us that we're not doing anything with that land until we know what's happening with the gondola over there. that gondola, as to Kathy's point earlier, it will shift in its alignment. So we don't know exactly where that station's gonna go. And then the idea that we would provide some type of other, land as open space is just an unknown in the future. And I mean, that's $1 million to $10 million unknown obligation that the owners in the future, and we just can't agree to that. So
But also talk about what we actually gave at the time, just,
Yes,
just the
and so-
plant material.
At the time, I mean, if you, there was like a 93 landscaping plan, and I don't know if we have that up here, but I think it was part of our whole package that we submitted. You have the building right there, and there's half a dozen trees that are planted there. And they're all mature, they're all 30-foot trees now. And then some willow bushes that were planted there, they're all mature as well. And then there's just grass areas, and that was all along kind of where the river trail hub went in. And so there was that new river trail access that was provided as well. So, I mean,
That's it.
That's kind of it right there. It was just those,
It's this spur was built and you got like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14.
We didn't donate.
There's like 20 trees that were planted that have grown in and they've expanded out because aspen trees have gone out. And so the value at that point in time, I think we saw earlier today, it was like $20,000, but to go out and buy land to replace that, that's way more than $20,000, even if you increase it up to today's dollars. And so that's why condition 10 is really problematic. We're just asking for that to respectfully go away. If you don't agree with that.
And another piece of information on that is that land that the gondola terminal sits on is also part of the PUD. So when the Mountain Village or SMART comes back, they're going to have to come to the town of Telluride and say, hey, we want to redo this PUD because we need to, change the configuration of our gondola terminal. And so, I mean, I think that's the town's opportunity to say, hey, we want to preserve as much open space as we have. So you guys already have at least a foothold in being able to preserve that. We'd love nothing more than that space to be open space in perpetuity as well. I mean, it's right across from the hotel. It's beautiful. The restaurant did use that during COVID. That was an agreement with Cosmo, not the hotel, and the Mountain Village specifically pursuant to a license agreement to use that. And then they had to re-veg that essentially after their use. So, condition 10 is problematic. Perhaps there's something that we could do if that PUD is ever redone and that remains open space and it gets knocked down in construction. Perhaps Bridget would be willing to say, hey, I'll contribute up to X amount of dollars set today to replant those trees there, provided it's in the same open space, open space vicinity there. So.
And I guess to conclude with condition 10, it's like, given the overall dollar value of what's happening here in the broad public benefits and the 30,000 donation, can this condition just go away? And I guess that's our question to you. And if not, then we need to sit down with town staff and try to craft something up that works for the town as well as for our client. So with
so
that,
essentially, if you guys feel like something needs to stay on that, we probably need to continue because I don't know that we'll be able to craft that today, but.
yeah, and then hopefully you saw Angela, the landscaping in those elevations that's on the corner there. It was shown earlier, but
the planter?
Yeah, the planter. And this can be expanded if needed a little bit here. There's some room for it, but that's where Hark is going to weigh in to say, is this appropriate or not, or does it need to be more? And then it's.
And are you referring to a condition when you talk about that?
Yeah, it's the one condition that talked about Hark reviewing and approving the landscaping and enhanced
Landscaping in number 9.
Condition 9 of the
Yeah,
resolution.
this is it as presented now, and that's going to be up to Hark to say, is this enough or does it need to be enhanced more? So with that, we're glad to answer any questions you have. So thank you for the time it's a fairly complex project and I really appreciate the opportunity.
Okay, thank you. Peter, questions of the applicant?
This might be for you, Chris, or Dylan. It's kind of a series of questions related to the keys or rooms or beds. Just make sure I'm tracking because I got confused a little bit. from 21 keys to 20 keys. Do I have that right? Okay. And there was verbiage in one of the conditions, if I'm remembering correctly, from 26 rooms, you guys want to change to 26 beds. Did I get
No,
that?
just 20 rooms, 20 hotel units is better.
No reference to rooms or,
21 rooms, we're going to, or 21 keys, we're going to need 20 keys. But in some of those keys, there will be multiple beds, so that's where you get to 26 beds.
gotcha, because I counted 24 beds. So, and again, just looking, and I don't know if we've got beds in the land use code, or if we talking on one person bed too. I'm like, I can't count. I don't want, like.
And you are, thank you.
And so in this configuration, we were able to, and it worked out beautifully, that we can make 2 double rooms on the second. So we got 2 extra rooms. Then we've got 2 rooms in the back that we figured out really understand and have a bunk room addition. So we got a couple of more beds there. So that was how we really worked out great.
Peter,
And also,
go ahead.
more beds.
Okay,
So
Peter,
less
hang on a
keys,
second.
but more beds.
Dylan, can you mute
Um,
yourself, please?
Somebody needs to mute.
That's Dylan.
Are we good?
Yep.
Okay, sorry to interrupt. Peter,
That was kind of it. I might have confused myself,
Yeah.
counting beds and pillows, wondering what, yeah, let's just stop. Okay.
so with regard to that item, you're saying that a condition 1 needs to change wording?
Yeah.
How would you
Just
suggest?
change it to 20 hotel units.
Property to be used for a hotel and operation of a hotel containing 20 hotel units rather than rooms. So strike rooms, strike 6, add a 0, add
Okay,
units.
so we'll discuss that with staff at this point, because I'm sure there's a definition of units in the land use code that may not be the same as. So
Yeah, I
we'll
think
we'll
use
get to that.
units because that's like affordable housing mitigation is in units, like number of hotel units. So that's kind of why we've been sticking with that, but it's always units or rooms.
Well, and maybe hotel language, but we're not talking that necessarily. So any other questions of the applicant from other commissioners? Yes, Kathy?
My recollection, and I think from reading of the plans you presented, is that the east driveway or that's parallel to whatever that building's called, the real estate building.
Yes.
It's not full of parking or whatever. It doesn't have more landscaping because you need to drive in and turn into other parking that's on other lots. So that's like, they own the land, but it has a huge easement on it to provide access to parking for other lots.
One lot.
One other lot.
This lot
And
right
it's,
here.
it's the lot that's, yeah, if you can show everybody.
Yeah, this
So-
lot right here.
so
Sorry,
there's
this is
not
the
a lot
engineered
of-
plan. That's not the best one.
Yeah. And then could you just quickly show me while you got that slide up? Where's
Sure.
your snow storage gonna be in the wintertime?
It's all snow melted, so it's.
Okay, so the water's all going into some
It'll be a newly designed below. Perfect.
below your
Yeah.
property.
Yeah, it'll
Okay.
be a dry well that
Okay.
attenuates flow.
Okay.
So there will, just to add on to that question, there will be a filtration of grease and other petroleum products before
There's-
it goes into the groundwater?
There'll be a grease trap for the restaurant, but the drains from the driveway, I think, just go straight into the detention pond. I'm not sure if there's a sand or oil separator in that design or not. I wish Karen was still here because she would know that in a
Mhm.
heartbeat.
It'll have to meet.
Yeah, it'll meet whatever.
Whatever
Public
code.
Works, Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
sorry. Any else?
That was my main question at this time.
Tom?
I was gonna ask about 10, but having served on SMART, having been on the gondola board, having, I know the applicant does not control that property at all. And the owner has been more or less.
Is this a
probably-
question for the
No,
applicant?
no.
Okay, stop.
Okay, then we'll go.
John-
Sorry to
John-
stop you
John,
there. You
who
can
was
fill
that?
us in, John. questions?
Yeah, I'm trying to avoid speculation. So if you don't know the answer, just say you don't know. But I'm curious when the easement was first established, back in ancient history, why do you believe there was no assign clause? Like why did it not transfer from Telski to the town and kind of remain over time? Is there a reason?
I mean, I have no idea why that was drafted the way it was. I think maybe, if I was in their shoes back in the day and I was representing, Telski or something like that, I'd say, hey, we don't want this easement to encumber this property when we have to transfer it in the future.
Yeah.
So we'll allow you to install it all now, but we don't know what the plans are. And it wasn't a street back then. It was in the original developers at Telski. They weren't the same, but they all knew each other. They were all good friends. And so it was a way to get things.
You're saying it was casual?
It was casual.
Yeah.
Everything was casual.
There was a clause, there was an accessory and a science clause in the agreement that Jim showed me earlier, that there was this, once track B was dedicated to the town, then those easements went away. So they basically, in my opinion, were saying, we don't want to tie the town's hands, so we're gonna let this go and let the town deal with this in the future. And so there's a lot of little things like that.
Tie the town's hands or
The
Mountain
village,
Village?
you need to
The town
call
of
the
Mountain
village.
Yeah.
Well, no,
village.
I'm talking about for the dedication of
Well,
track B,
it was
which is the
part of
San
track
Juan
B
right
was
away.
San Juan right away, and that's the dedication that triggered the end of that easement.
Okay, right, okay,
Odd that it didn't continue on,
right.
honestly.
But it was a condition of the approval of this PUD originally.
The installation of the landscaping was a condition of the PUD. There was nothing in that original PUD that,
Telski did the installation.
that talked about, about like maintaining it in perpetuity or existing in perpetuity. It was just the installation. Then Telski actually did the installation, and the hotel people paid for that installation.
Okay, thank you. That's
And
helpful.
can you just point out to everybody how San Juan Avenue, again, on the right side, narrows down? Because
Yeah.
that was the land that the
Here it
town of
is.
Telluride
So
gave towards the gondola, whoever owned the thing at the
Yeah.
moment.
there's this, right now, this is a little parking delivery zone used for snow storage in the winter, and then it goes back up here, and then it narrows down as it goes down San Juan Avenue. And actually, the gondola building is like corners right there.
2 feet or so?
Yeah, it's.
I know, I walked it.
In a perfect world, the gondola building should get pulled back some to create, if this doesn't become a pedestrian plaza, a nice sidewalk on that side. Cause it's just a dirt path right now.
Okay, John, did you have more questions?
No more questions.
No.
Public.
Yeah, I had a question of the applicant first, before we go to public. And by the way, do we have public?
We do.
Okay,
I would call for public comment, please.
yeah, I haven't called for it yet. I had a couple questions. Just a heads up to those of you who are public to use the raise your hand function, please, on the Zoom. And you will have 3 minutes each for whatever comments you want to make. So I have a question about number 11 condition, or just general, maybe not that condition, but just you're saying you're going to improve that 10-foot walkway along Gus's Way.
There's-
Right now, there's a pretty,
Nasty curb cut.
what's that?
Dylan talked to Public Works. so have Dylan answer this.
Dylan,
Yeah.
you want to answer this question, please?
So my question is, are you going to remove the ramp that doesn't appear to connect to anything, that a lot of us who walk that fall or almost fall, especially in the wintertime, because it's not expected? Just wondering about that.
Yeah.
Is that what's in
Yeah,
there?
we've moved, the ADA ramp is going to be right at that corner. It's indicated in the red rectangle there.
Right there.
So working with Civil and Public Works, they'd like to see that access at the corner. So it provides nice, clean access both to the far side at the river trail and over to the west. And so everything else will be sort of cleaned up, but that will be our ADA access area right off the corner there.
And the other one will be removed, you know, the one I'm
Correct.
talking about further
Yes.
east?
Yeah, it says
Yeah.
existing out of compliance ADA ramp right there.
Okay, sorry, I couldn't
Yeah.
read that.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, it's pretty small.
so what's your disposition on the 25 versus the 30K?
I'm not
Can you
sure.
come up to a microphone, please?
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm not sure I understand the reasoning behind the 30K. Just because we're reconfiguring the restaurant and making a more efficient kitchen and having one operator. The total space of the restaurant, the first floor and the kitchen, we're moving some kitchen upstairs to be more efficient. So I'm not sure I get the reasoning of the 30K versus 25. But, you know, I'm committed to doing right by this project, right by Telluride, right? You know, so the difference between 25 and 30,000 is I can manage that. 10's harder. I mean, 10's like, I can't even imagine what that means. But I don't, the methodology coming up with the 30,000, I don't think is really valid.
Okay. We'll talk about that in deliberation, I guess. Thank you. So
Okay,
before,
wait, Todd now has a question.
Todd, yes, you have a question?
We received public comment in form of a letter from the Orr House
Yes, and I'm going to address that right now when I
Okay.
open public comment.
because,
Did you have any questions?
well,
We'll let them address that.
yeah,
Yeah, cool. All right, so we'll open for a public comment, but before that, we have received a memo from the Orr Station Lodge Condominium Association signed by Hal Rosenblit, who's president of the HOA, regarding delivery trucks. My question to staff before we begin this is this relevant to our deliberation on this permit?
It's relevant. We'd like to hear the response from the applicant.
Okay.
I'm not sure that it's relevant specifically to what they're proposing to do here, but there may be something that they can provide as a solution. And so I'd be interested to hear what the applicant's response is.
Okay, I just want to make sure that this was the venue in which to discuss that.
Yes,
Okay, yes?
yes.
All right, so who do we have on public comment?
I'm gonna call on Albert Rower.
Hello, thank you. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Great. We are I'm with Telluride Properties. We're the immediate adjacent neighbor. I'm also Mambo LLC, which is the owner of the building. And we're fully supportive of this project. We love the fact that the exhaust fan is being moved to the roof because I can tell exactly what they're cooking if my back door is open. It's delicious in the morning when they've got pastries going, but sometimes it's grilled lamb. So we're thrilled with that aspect, and especially thrilled with the movement of the trash and to Aspen Street, because the waste management trucks have crushed the concrete apron on their side. On our side, they usually park kind of kitty corner and have crushed the sidewalk and apron for the parking. So fully supportive, love those two items. And I just would love to figure out, when we're doing all this work, the sidewalk. When our building was built, we weren't the owners at the time. I bought it from the original builders and owners of that property. Is super dangerous. The sidewalk from our building out to Gus's Way is at an incline, and in the winter, people come off the gondola, step onto the sidewalk, and immediately fall because the sidewalk is canted, and it's doubly canted right by the back door there. where there's a giant slope from where our back door is to where our ramp is for our parking. And so, you know, we were happy to participate in this, but we would love to figure out how to re-engineer the sidewalk from about midway in our building west towards the Columbia, because it's canted, it's sloped, it's got pitches, it's a disaster. And it's all, a lot of it's crumbled from the trash trucks. That's it. Thank you very much. I'm not, and I
Okay.
don't speak for the residential owner. I don't know if he's in the room, but so that's our 2 cents from being the commercial neighbor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Albert.
We have Hal Rosenblatt. I've asked him to unmute.
Hal Rosenblatt?
Berg. I think it's the R station.
Yeah, from the OR. Are you the,
He's not unmuted yet, but I've asked him to.
okay, OR Station Lodge? Can you unmute yourself, please? If you care to speak. There we are.
I've
Yep.
I've asked him to unmute. You just need to push the button that on your screen.
We can't hear you yet.
He's working on it.
There we go.
Thank
Can
you.
hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, good. So I submitted a letter regarding the delivery trucks. And they have been a continuing problem here. We would like to have you do something to mitigate the exhaust fumes for our facility. And I mentioned 3 possibilities in the letter. We are open to other possibilities. We're also concerned about the moving of the HVAC to the roof, because it looks like it may be on a level that matches the 3rd floor of our facility. And we want to make sure that the noise generated by the HVAC is somehow directed away from our building. Currently, or when I was in conference with Bridget, she indicated that there was a higher structure to the south of where the HVAC would be, which means there's a wall for that sound to bounce off of back towards our building. And I'm very concerned about that. The residents on the southeast corner of the building have received a lot of noise.
Okay.
So I'm not sure what you can do about the delivery trucks. I'm not sure that my suggestions, if nothing else, even the smaller delivery trucks do not use the loading zone currently, and they should. They should all be pulling not into the no parking zone in front of our building, but into the loading zone. And I would think that that's something very reasonable to require. And at the same time, the delivery trucks should be required to pull further south on Aspen Street to keep the smokestacks well away from our building. After talking to Bridget, she agreed to have the trucks move further down, but she won't allow them to block her own driveway, which I think is unreasonable. They have control over that driveway. It's valet parking. So the delivery trucks really shouldn't, create a problem pulling temporarily in front of that driveway.
Okay, thank you. Is all
Well,
you
there
have?
I have more preferred solutions, but I'm not sure there are ones that you can implement, one of which would be to increase the size of the loading dock. But you've been talking about, what Mountain Village is willing to do with that land, and that may be opening more of a can of worms than everybody can deal with right now.
Okay. Making a note of your suggestions. We'll have you guys address those. Okay, thank you, Hal. Who's next?
There is no other public comment.
Okay. No one in the room either. So Are we at a point where I can close public comment and go to deliberation?
No, they need to
No.
rebuttal.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
We'll be brief. Real quickly to address the mechanical bay, this is the roof plan that shows the new mechanical bay and there is a parapet wall up here. Do we know the height of that, Dylan?
See it in elevation.
But yeah.
It's on the Orthouse side.
Yeah.
So that would.
Sound and how about smell? I think those are the
Yeah,
other
but this
comments.
is where the vents and everything comes up through the roof, so it's getting it out and down low.
There's a really noisy fan
Yeah,
up there
Dylan,
now.
Can you cut your, there you go. Thank you.
If you go to existing, an image of existing, that Orhouse has, told us is really loud for some of their units. We genuinely, for sure, part of the remit to REG Engineering is to try to contain the noises. Smells aren't such a problem really up there, but, and so you can see the parapet wall here. And if you look at existing, there's a really noisy fan up there right now that's been a real nuisance that will be completely going away.
So what I'm finding.
I'm surprised by that comment, as it's been one of our main thing was to get rid of the existing fan and, make
Okay.
things so much better. And there'll be we have an acoustical engineer now on board that will be looking at acoustical panels.
Here's the current fan right here.
Do you see that fan right there? It's a really, really,
Where's your cursor? Sorry, I don't see it.
Right here.
Oh, that big
right
guy.
up there. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
On the delivery issue, if we're ready for
Yes.
that one. I would just position that this is not a PUD issue. This is an overall town issue. It's not just for this location. It's all over town. I regularly can't get to my office and parking space because there's delivery trucks blocking roads all over town. They're parked in right of ways. It's a much larger conversation that I think the town and Public Works would need to address. I have no idea what the solution is because we just have limited road right of way space for deliveries. As to the suggested changes, the loading zone down on San Juan, it is very small. And in my experience, and I actually worked for the town of Mountain Village for 15 years, and Mountain Village uses that loading zone to park down there and for their gondola maintenance and things like that. So that loading zone is occupied a lot of the time, too small for, I'd say, at least 80% of the delivery trucks that are there. There's really no ability to expand that. Perhaps when the Mountain Village PUD, comes through, they could expand that. But and then as far as blocking the exit from the hotel, the way that circulation pattern works in the valet, that is really problematic to block a driveway. And then finally, on that, this is not just for deliveries to the hotel or the restaurant at the hotel, but those delivery trucks actually use that alleyway to access 221 South Oak. So it's deliveries for not just our hotel. So it's not something that we individually can solve. We're all for if there's a solution that Public Works can come up with, that is, there, but I don't think it's for us to solve at this meeting. So.
Okay, I think those were the ones, primary public comments. So, and that's your rebuttal, right? Okay.
Yes, thank you.
So we can close public comment and go to deliberation. Who wants to start? Kathy?
I will reluctantly go first since I can only speak once. I'll start out with condition number 10. I want to nuke it. When this PUD started and that condition was imposed, all that was over there by the gondola building was a pile of rocks and gravel and dirt. And you could not get down to the river trail very easily. And it's right where the river trail floods and spring runoff. And there was a great need to bring people up and down from the river right there. So what we asked for was to make it look pretty and to build that spur. That's a really critical thing during spring runoff for the river trail. We did not ask for open space. We did not consider it open space. I wish sometimes, I guess staff can't talk to me, but sometimes I could explain what we were doing 30 or 40 years ago because we had logic. So I think condition number 10 is over, you know, and I think that whenever the gondola upgrades, that then Mountain Village or SMART or an unknown entity will take over and make that area functional. And what we need to do as watchdogs on it for P&Z is to make sure that we still have that trail connection. That's the critical thing, is to get people out of the river and not trying to ford the river when they're going to get washed downstream and potentially drown. So I think 10 is crazy. Okay.
Next.
Now I'll have to remember everything else. Okay. I really like the modest size increase that you're asking for. I think that's appropriate. I think that the mechanical updating and the relocation is super important. I would like to see something about sound reduction. In your enclosure walls. Right now, it looks to me they're just like corrugated metal on a welded frame, and that's not sound, that doesn't absorb sound. So I want that enclosure to have sound reduction. I really like that it's reverting back to a hotel from a condo hotel, but in the next breath, I will point out that we no longer recognize hotels or condo hotels or hotbeds, whatever words we want to use, as a PUD amenity. But at the same time, I think saying 20 keys or 20 rooms, I don't want to get into beds or pillows. We've done every kind of counting. I don't even know. Maybe we've only done beds, pillows, rooms, whatever. I can't even remember keys in the last 45 years. So I don't mind the reduction, and I would rather not say beds, just in case there's a remodel, just in case the bunk room that has 2 beds in it turns into a single bed. You know, I don't want to get so that you have to yo-yo through here every 10 minutes. I want a guarantee, and maybe it's implicit, but I need to be reassured of that the offsite employee unit is always going to be an employee unit. I mean, if it's sold to somebody, as long as it's deed restricted and it stays in the pool forever, that's what I want for there. And I definitely feel that the Ore Station Lodge problem is a town-wide problem. It's nothing to do with this PUD. It's nothing, you know, we have trucks idling by condos all the time, and it's really noisy and it's really obnoxious, and it can create air quality issues, and it's sad, and I don't know what we do about it. And once long ago, we talked about having a place like out at Lawson Hill where all the trucks would transfer into little pickup trucks and bring stuff into town. But I can't even imagine what that would cost. And at Lawson Hill now, there's no room for that transfer place. So I don't know how we would ever achieve that. And then the last thing I want to address is the $30,000. I think that that's a fair number, because the real reason that this PUD was ever granted was for the hotel rooms. This was one of our first new hotels in town, maybe the first new hotel. Everything else had been a condo that I can think of up to this point. And so this was really exciting for us, and we were going for the hotel rooms. And now that the hotel rooms are no longer a benefit, and I was the one leading the charge, I'll take all the blame for that, because maybe we have too many hotels. But to see this turn into a real hotel again is great. But I do think you need to put in at least $30,000 to compensate for that, for the fact that your biggest PUD benefit from the very first PUD that got the extra height, the extra site coverage, the extra, a lot of stuff was based on hotel rooms. And they're not our number one benefit. They're not even considered a benefit today. And that's it.
On.
I agree wholeheartedly. I think what you said is we want to strike number 10 from the resolution. and change number 1 to 20 hotel units.
Yeah.
And everything else is. in the
Stays the
PUD.
Same, yeah.
Yeah.
As far as you're concerned?
And I'll second what.
Well,
both the
don't use that
applicant
word,
and
but yeah,
Kathy-
you agree with.
that there are issues with Mountain Village, there are issues with deliveries and all sorts of things that are not part of P and Z's purview. And they'll need to be addressed going forward, but that's not this application.
Okay,
I think I'm ready.
Peter?
Is number 11, address a public comment about the sidewalk? And I know it sort of extends maybe further east in that public comment about improving the San Juan sidewalk safety.
That was like halfway through their building, but on further.
I mean, number
Kathy?
11 just covers the property they own.
Right.
You don't get to make a developer or a builder or an owner, whatever you want to call them, develop, put a sidewalk on somebody else's private property. I think what we heard was the neighbor volunteering to participate
Wanting-
with one comprehensive new sidewalk at the right time. So I don't think we need to bring that into this agreement. They can work that out on their own. And I will point out that Angela and I have a close friend that broke her leg on the sidewalk, so we'll be glad to see it fixed.
Yes. And I would agree, yeah. John or Charles?
I think I'm ready. I just wanted to first commend you guys on the design. I think it looks really good. I know it's not our purview, but I know it's really difficult with these old buildings, and especially once they hit 20 years, they really start to need a lot of work. So I appreciate what you guys are doing. I agree completely with Kathy's point of view on number 10, condition number 10. I think it's good to just get rid of. And honestly, I'm okay with removing number 4. Personally, I feel like it's a little redundant, but it's okay, also if we keep it. To touch base on deliveries, I live in the warehouse district, and there's always trucks that are delivering stuff and running, and you hear them. So I think it's just really a code enforcement issue. If the truck's parking in a no parking zone, we just need to have more town participation in enforcing that type of stuff. So generally speaking, I'm in favor. I think keeping the hotel as a hotel is a really good benefit for the town. I know it's not considered a public benefit any longer, but I think there is some benefit, as the applicant indicated, in not having these hotels condominiumized and then basically a cold bed for a majority of the year. So those are kind of my thoughts. I just wanted to kind of spit them out.
Charles, anything?
I think I pretty much agree, 10, I think is, needs to be removed. It's not, I think, financially feasible for them or anyone to expect that. I do agree with, Kathy, that on number 3, that $30,000 public benefit. Yeah, I think it's kind of a minimum number to ask for. And yes, the ore station, as we've all said, I don't think we can solve that problem.
Okay.
Does anyone have an issue with number 1 going from 26 hotel rooms to 20 units?
Can you speak into your mic, please?
Does anyone have an issue with number 1? No? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, as long as we call them hotel units, I think
We
that
wouldn't-
distinguishes them from units. But Ron, did you want to weigh in?
We wouldn't be opposed if you want to get rid of that first condition. The second condition is kind of redundant, so I think that's where we're really getting into the numbers. But that's up to the commission, but we wouldn't be opposed to that.
Okay. I mean, it's.
Okay.
My only comment there would be that from a legal perspective, 1 hotel unit with 20 keys is a little ambiguous. 'Cause that could theoretically be 1 room with actually 20 keys. I know what it's supposed to mean, but it's I would suggest something to the effect of 20 hotel units consisting of 26 bedrooms. That is what's in the application. If you wanted to include that here, you could, or we could just say 20 hotel rooms or bedrooms or units.
Units. would be
Okay. Kathy?
I want to keep this simple. I don't want them to, I mean, this is the Fifth Amendment, or have I lost count?
No, we're
I
on the
don't
fifth one.
want them to come back because they suddenly want, as long as they still have the same number of rooms, and they have at least 20 beds in there. I don't care if they have 26 or 22 or 23. I don't want to see this when they want to move a wall over. I want it only to go to building, because they're probably not going to change anything on the outside. If they're smart, they won't go back to Hark. I want to keep this simple. And this was the original benefit, but it's not the main benefit anymore. So if we can combine 1 and 2 or somehow keep this simple without tying them into 26 beds. Oh my God, please. Sorry,
Okay.
I'm overreacting.
No, that's all right.
Well, could we just amend number 1 just to say
yeah.
units like they
Right.
indicated?
I have it
Both.
right now as striking 26 hotel rooms and replacing it with 20 hotel units.
Okay,
Okay, let's
that's
just
fine.
keep
Then
it
we'll
that
keep
way.
it.
And we'll keep
Okay.
1, we'll keep 2.
Okay.
I was gonna just ask, there was some
Ron,
for
did you wanna say
deliberation here.
No, I'm good with that.
So
Sound mitigation was another item mentioned. Is that a comment to Hark? Is that anything we can do anything about? In terms of what P and Z's purview?
Holly?
I don't think so, right? Yeah.
No.
Okay, so I know bringing up, take that forward, but it's not a condition, I guess is my point.
And it doesn't add a lot of cost to
Right.
add that insulation.
The offsite employee housing unit. Can I ask where that is? Does anybody?
It's in the Gold Run.
Brown Dog, above the Brown Dog.
Oh, Brown Dog. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Deed restriction to that.
Sophia's.
That's about-
There is a recorded deed restriction on that.
In all units.
Okay, if it's a recorded deed restriction, they usually work these days. It's been a long time since one has been busted.
Yeah.
No,
No, I verified.
That to Ron.
I verified that unit still exists. It's still deed restricted, and the units in the hotel are deed restricted as well too.
Is it anywhere noted, and does it need to be in our conditions here? That is in fact one of the units that's provided. And that it is a deed restricted unit.
Well, it's in the report. It's part of the whole thing.
Okay,
I mean, putting it in a condition would just be redundant, essentially. Once it's deed restricted,
it remains in the pool.
It can, but it's really difficult to pull that out. I wouldn't want to go for it. That would be super expensive.
So to your question, Kathy, is that satisfactory?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing is, as long as it's counted for this building and someone else in the building where it's actually located never comes in and says, well, this is my deed restricted unit. I mean, we need to make sure that it goes with this Hotel Columbia and not to the commercial building where it's located.
If I could just clarify that it is that clear in the deed restriction of the records that are attached to this
Okay.
property, it is clearly tied to this.
Yeah.
Between the record and the deed restriction, it's clear.
Yeah.
So I would ask staff to verify that, please.
Sure.
And
I
make
think
sure.
Ron has, but.
Yeah, and I think Chris is right. I'm pretty sure he is. I
Okay.
did look at it recently.
Not that I doubt what you're saying, Chris, just that we
Sure,
can
absolutely.
verify that
Understand.
so that, because it seems to be a concern.
Yeah, we did go through this stuff pretty heavily. So if it didn't pop up as a question,
Yeah,
it probably was direct on.
right. I wouldn't make any assumptions. That's why I just asked.
Yeah. And
So I'm going through these one by one. I think the questions or the concerns that Kathy mentioned, I'm just going through those so that we are clear and we're on the same page with them. Number 3, 30,000. Everybody okay with that request? The number 4, repeating all of that. How do we feel? Are we striking any of that or are we just leaving it in place?
I
Yeah.
like it the way it is. I remember going to the basement space a bunch in the early 2000s after it was first designated this way. And we're losing we have lost the community room down by the marshal's office. We're losing some other community room spaces that are about the size of this cellar room. And I think we need these. I think the big problem is no one knows about this. So I kind of like that it's right here, restated again. Maybe somebody else will read this and ask to use it. And I think we really spelled out the times of the year so that, you know, Cosmo or whatever restaurant can make the most possible money, but then in the off season, they're open usually anyway, they can give back to the community. That's part of the deal. Maybe their rent, I mean, that's between Bridget and Chad, what the rent is, whatever. But, you know, I think this is an important space as we grow and as we lose other spaces.
Okay. 5, I didn't hear any changes to,
Oops.
What do I gotta do?
you need to call me by name and I will look at you. Sorry, I think we're gonna have to work that out.
Yeah, during the applicant's presentation, there was an allusion that number 4 is not exactly the restriction that already exists, that it may have been modified slightly.
Oh, okay.
Do we need?
The
I mean,
specificity?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know how this is administered,
Jimmy
actually.
can tell us what, we can ask Jim.
Ron?
So
Go ahead.
There's just a slight language difference, and I have those here, and it has to do with either the tasting cellar or the enclosed patio space. That's the difference in the language. Be available. We'd love to have that flexibility to say, hey, here's this patio space. It's gonna be different now than it was, but we'd love to have that flexibility in there.
So are
if we
you
could just-
referring to the patio space that you are demolishing and building on?
Correct.
So-
we'd
so-
have to have
So
the
we'd have to
reference.
change that
Yeah, so-
reference.
To the
What
east
are you
end of
calling
the
it?
Or
restaurant.
maybe the east end of the restaurant.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Is there a reference here to that in
It
here?
was or,
Yeah,
yes.
it was or, so that meant, sorry, that meant as the owner operator, we could say, oh, you could have your event at the tasting cellar, the patio, or you could have it in the basement at the tasting cellar, which we're now calling a private dining room.
Right, yeah.
So
So we could say, and Romanet 2, make the east end of the restaurant space or the tasting cellar.
Or the basement
Or
private dining.
PDR,
Private
yeah,
dining.
yes.
Yeah.
Dining cellar / private dining room?
private dining room.
Yeah. The cellar.
So you would rather,
Cellar.
you are going to call that a private dining room instead of the tasting cellar?
Yeah.
So we should strike the tasting cellar?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to write the resolution here as we go. East end of the restaurant.
I think what's important from an operations standpoint is we try to keep the word or in there for us so that if it's a very busy time and we do want to use the whole restaurant for outside guests, but we can still, satisfy the ask from the nonprofit or whoever for the PDR, that'd be great.
So how
Which
does
is how
everybody-
it's written now.
Okay,
I think that makes sense.
everybody okay with that?
So
Change our reference to it. but-
jumping back into 1 real fast, I know you said 20 hotel units.
Yes.
Which we can keep, but can we put in there 26 rooms?
No,
bedrooms?
no, I will,
Ah,
don't want him to come back every 10 minutes or every
Right, but
two-
that's an advantage of doing what we're doing.
I know.
And
I
we're kind
think
of knocking it
I'm a
out.
little
So I just want to be clear on that.
Can you clarify? For me,
Can you
I'm
put this on the
confused.
screen so we can see it?
It's
Um,
actually 26 beds.
Right.
Yeah, it's not, I mean,
That's like,
they can rent a 2 or 3 bedroom unit to one person. It's the
Mhm.
number of rentals, the number of keys they have, not the number of beds. It's going to make more people. And I really don't think we care anymore whether they have 20 beds or whether they have 26 beds, since we might have too many beds in our community.
Ron, can you pull that up real fast?
No, so to streamline this resolution process, John is going to pull a Word version of the resolution up on the screen. We're going to edit it in real time, and that way, when it comes time for someone to make a motion, you'll just say as presented at the meeting. That way
Okay,
you won't
'cause-
have to go through the striking in addition. Yes. But
The
when the
same thing.
resolution is made, when the motion is made to adopt the resolution, that
Sorry,
way
it
you
was-
won't need to add that.
All right, let's go through this. Keep going here. 5, we got the valet, no questions there. 6, the trash. There was some discussion about whether or not we were, they were already over, but then people want to keep all of those spaces, so is there any change to this? Let me
No,
put
you
it
mean
that way.
on number 6?
Number 6, sorry. Yes, 6.
I think since they've got more parking between their waivers, their buyouts, and on site than they need, if there's only 10 spaces on site to provide access to the trash that works, it doesn't really matter. I don't think we should tie them to a number.
Is this something that Hark will deal with?
That was how the condition was written, right?
Yeah. Park normally enforces parking to our standards, whatever.
Prevent any disruption to the vehicular circulation and parking to the
It's just
satisfaction of
different
staff.
presentation. I think it was different in the presentation. It said HPC, but
Ron,
Sorry.
has anything changed in the way you have written this in terms of a resolution based on the conversation? We can leave this in. There's some flexibility in the way it's written right now, so.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the way it's worded, the applicant shall find a location for a trash enclosure that will prevent any disruption of the vehicular circulation and parking to the satisfaction of staff. There's no number given, there's no requirement as far as if they meet the parking, then it's not an issue.
Okay, so it's worded to satisfy that. And if we don't necessarily care whether it's a change to the parking number. And leave that to Hark and
think-
site design to figure out.
Yeah.
Okay, Ally's shaking her head. Yes, let's go on. Okay, 7. Waiver of parking, no change. I didn't hear to that. Parking shall be sold, leased, no change to that I heard. Landscape enhancements, that would be for the east side of this, that planter area. It's pretty token as far as I can tell. So I'm still not clear on what this means, Ron, from your standpoint. Landscape enhancements, it's either landscape improvements or, I mean, there's not much there anyway. So,
And I,
and I'm not sure what the character of Oak Street and Aspen Street is, except a huge cottonwood that they've tried to save and some really pitiful planters.
that-
So
That's another pitiful planner.
that's, yeah,
I
that's my
can-
opinion.
I can clarify, I mean, we reflect, this language reflects the original language. The
Does it?
intent was.
From
anything-
1994, right?
Yes, anything
Yep.
that they did, it should reflect the character of the Oak Street redevelopment.
Hopefully
So,
better.
yeah, and so that's why this language is in there. It's just to reinforce it for the
Okay.
new landscaping.
Okay, so, and it's still subject to Hark review, so we move on. Okay, everyone seems to agree with striking 10 in whole,
Correct.
right? And 11, I don't see that we made any changes to that either. Box. And
I think we're
probably
fine.
be subject to ADA compliance for a building permit anyways, right? Okay, so, who wants to tackle this one? And please don't put that
No,
on
he's
Kathy.
he's gonna, John's gonna put it up on, here, and we're gonna make
Ron's
or
putting it up.
Ron's gonna put it up. And we're gonna draw on top of it.
Okay, so number one, I had Ron to strike 26 hotel rooms,
It's now,
replace with 20 hotel units.
yep.
Yep,
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right.
okay. Number two doesn't change. Number three doesn't change. Number four has under 2I and strike the tasting cellar, replace with
Private dining.
Private dining room.
well, yeah, I had here, east end of the restaurant or private dining room.
Located
It's
in the
hard to
lower level, yeah.
It's the
right.
eighth line, Ron.
Starts a line.
It's on the
Well,
third
right
line
there.
past midnight.
Jim.
So
So go.
what does it start with?
It starts at the double I in
Well, I
parentheses.
mean, where does that sentence, what does it start with in the paragraph?
Make the tasting cellar. It's toward the end of the sentence.
Just- Or they have,
Yes.
they have an issue.
So
The applicant has something to add here.
I think we could actually just leave it to private dining room on that, because Bridget just told me
Right here.
the way this is configured, there's not gonna be a great way to isolate people over on that east end of the restaurant. So if you just wanted to say, make the private dining room available.
Located in the lower level.
Yeah, I
of the
want to keep it
hotel.
in essence what it is now. So what this says is that the tasting cellar, which we would change to private dining room, that's in the lower level, is available a lot. The restaurant, the very last sentence, you see, the restaurant shall not be available for public benefit. It gives the restaurant more protection so that it's not available in the high ski season or the summer busy season. So it kind of makes and I want to keep it exactly the way it is now.
And that's the way it was agreed to originally?
Yes.
And but we'll change
Patio.
tasting cellar to
To
private
private
dining
dining.
room.
And there are two places that's noted. One is the
Right.
one we've been wrestling with under the double I.
And is that
Further
where it's
on,
highlighted? for
there's
you?
Yes.
tasting
Okay.
cellar shall not be available, changes to private dining room.
Where is that?
It's about halfway
is-
down, starts at the left side, taste, right there.
Like the
tasting
7th or
cellar.
8th line on the left side of the paragraph.
You just passed it, Ron.
Tasting,
There
oh,
your cursor's
okay,
right.
here it is.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Is everybody
Hi.
good with that?
Yeah,
my ears and
That's
eyes
great.
are not working.
Okay.
you're far away.
Ron, your face is blocking the first change. Did you add room on private dining on the first modification?
I'm sorry, number one, is that what you're referring to?
No.
No,
The
the
double,
first
the
change, you
double eyes.
double I.
Both should say private dining room.
Yeah, I think it
Oh,
does.
In
private
lieu of
dining.
tasting
It does,
cellar.
I can see it now.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Okay, moving on.
And then room, he needs to add room.
I need to add rooms.
On both instances.
Yeah,
think
sorry,
you're
I can't see that.
I think he does have it private dining. Okay, yeah,
Dining room, not rooms.
yeah.
Singular, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Everybody's good with that change?
Yes.
All right.
Okay, great.
Okay, so,
And he deleted 10.
Get
The
rid of
old
10.
10 is
hang on,
gone.
yeah.
And the new old 11 is now a new 10.
Yes.
Okay. And I thought all the beginning of it was fine, that we didn't do anything there.
With no new whereases are necessary?
Yeah, I hope
You wanna
not.
mess with it?
Please no.
Anybody? You want to make a motion? Yes.
I move to approve the resolution approving the amendment to the Hotel Columbia PUD based on the findings and conditions set forth in the resolution attached to the staff memo dated June 20th, 2024, and modified during the meeting on June 27th, 2024. This motion is based on evidence and testimony provided at a public hearing held on June 27th, 2024, with notice of such hearing provided as required by the Telluride Land Use Code.
Okay, before you second, are we good with that?
Yeah.
Are we, all right,
Okay, I would like to second that motion.
all right. Any discussion of the motion? All those in favor, John, well, you can't
Wait,
vote.
Wait, Piper.
We don't do a hand raised vote. We go around. and
Right.
Call a roll call vote.
Yep, that's why I'm going.
You said
John
all those
doesn't
in
get to
favor.
vote.
No,
No.
just how do you vote?
Peter.
John doesn't get to.
Peter, yes.
Charles, yes.
Angela, yes?
Kathy, yes.
Todd, yes.
All right, motion passes.
It's
Thank
unanimous.
you for all your time.
Brian, can you print that
Thanks.
real fast?
Yeah, it's printing right now. As we
Yeah, we're
speak.
working on it. We're working on
Well,
the process.
I think we did leaps and bounds from our first try.
Yeah, and I agree that going through and getting them written out and pulling up the logo up there and modifying and then just adopting like that.
Yeah.
Way to go for this.
That was back to the agenda for a minute. Don't get too
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm still
quiet
here.
We still have one thing to go. Board and staff discussion, which we were essentially having about our resolution.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, anything else?
Resolutions. We'll work on it. We'll get there.
No, I think we did well, all things considered. We had they weren't really straightforward things tonight. as
No,
sometimes
they were
are.
complicated
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Thanks for
that
your
was
patience,
your-
everybody.
But Todd
your
had
Todd,
three to-
yes.
Angela. And this gets at Piper and Ron and Ally as well, that we formally had a policy that we were not gonna take public comment during or at the meeting, that it had to be in our hands, so we had a chance to read it before the meeting.
It's
This showed up
disruptive.
tonight. It's,
Yep.
it's really disruptive and
light.
it, no, it's,
And
it's
just not good
messing
form.
around with that. Is it available to everybody? Kind of thing, 'cause
Including the public.
including the public, right? So is it feasible that we have a cutoff?
It is. What I would recommend, and something I still need to bring up with John, is that we probably do want to adopt a new Planning and Zoning Commission manual with procedures.
Oh my
And
God, here we
yes,
go.
and that, it doesn't have to be a big document, but it does need to set forth some of these procedures, just like written public comment, that we would be able to limit at least, it needs to be submitted an hour before the meeting or 24 hours before the meeting or something to that effect, or you can present it verbally. But that's definitely something that can be considered. It's not something that's come up all that often in the 3 years that I've been here, but I do understand how disruptive it can be and how it can delay the meeting a little bit.
We have gone through, I think before Todd actually, but Kathy and I have gone through, and Charles, you may remember as well, several iterations where we've had people just throw 5 letters at us
Yeah.
right as we start the meeting, and that just doesn't work.
It's a tactic.
There was a particular attorney who did that a lot when I first started, I remember,
Yes.
and I think that's when the rule might have been last implemented. So we can definitely do it again.
Okay, thank
Yeah, I
you.
think that would be nice, and they need to know to, they've got to be respectful of everybody's time, including town staff, to react to the letter, and as well as our ability to read it without delaying the meeting for 5 or 10 minutes.
You guys think
That's normal.
24 hours before the meeting?
I don't know, but
Okay.
maybe 12. I don't know what our work days, everybody's work days, are like that if you get it
I think it's,
6 in the morning, can you read it sometime before you come here at 5:30?
I personally thought the
Yeah.
letter we got related to the
I'm
third
not
item
sure
on the
you would
agenda, we got it enough time. I had time to read it prior to the meeting.
Yeah.
The
The
Hotel
other one-
Columbia one?
Yeah, the other one kind of
Well,
came in
I'd
right
say
at the meeting.
24 hours is reasonable because then it would get in our inboxes. We'd have a chance to read.
At least think about it a little
Yeah.
bit, you know.
Yeah, we
Exactly.
can think about it.
But
yeah.
I do think
You could try that.
we want as much public comment as we can get.
Oh,
So I
yeah.
think it's-
Don't want
you
it to
don't
be
wanna
a
too
deterrent.
restrictive.
right?
I think there are some people who the meeting and at the last minute, maybe something happens there.
Like opposition packet.
They can't
No.
make their public comment. So I would hate to
Or they could
lose
leave
that
them in the
comment
record.
Shall we
within
try it?
reason.
I think.
But we
24 hours is
also
good.
have Zoom today, which we did not have in that era of coming into a stack of 6 letters or 5 letters at each person's
Mm.
place at 5:30 when we walked in. We have Zoom, so even if they're sick or even if they can't come here, they should be able to go on Zoom and comment.
Let's try the 24 hours.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay?
Yes.
So thanks, everybody, for your patience today.
Yeah.
We'll get there.
Doing fine.
And
Meeting adjourned
meeting adjourned at,
by unanimous consent.
hang on, at 9:23 by unanimous consent without objection.
Don't go anywhere. I need you to sign